Hey everybody, welcome to the UD6 August tournament. I'm with Mythical, as always. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic as always, Twin. We're about to get started with the August tournament, another chance for players to qualify for the grand finals of season 6 of the Ultimate Decathlon. And we're going to see some returning faces from the July tournament.
Yeah.
But two players did qualify, though we do have a correction to make.
Yeah, so if you've been with us last months, we got three intense turns. So same settings, we qualified 8 players, then 4 players, and then during the finals we had Skunkoff, Melwest, Brothermain, and Devil Tifa. Melwest had a technical issue on inertia, so he redid his run, and there's been like quite a discussion going on. Melwest didn't feel like so comfortable winning where he should have lost. It was like sort of a weird way, so we decided for multiple reasons that we would qualify. Devil Tifa obviously got first place, and Brothermain made the cut. He was top 2 if it was not for Melwest redoing his run. So sorry for the confusion there. Maybe if you're watching the VODs and you've just seen that Melwest and Devil Tifa should be qualified, it's actually Brothermain and Devil Tifa, which is kind of sad for me because I was very excited for more Brothermain tournament action because he is a very solid runner. He is done fantastic, and I was sure he was going to do just great on the August tournament. So today we have a cool list of 16 runners ready. We will qualify only top 8, so just the first half. And as you mentioned, we have like some good name that we've followed, especially Skunkoff. They are probably the leader and top runner for that August tournament.
Yeah, not too many returning faces though. I'm very happy to see LF, who made top 8 but was unable to play in the later stages of the tournament. So I'm glad that they'll have another chance to qualify here. Cute Shadow as well, one of the players to advance to the top 8, is going to be looking really good. In particular, Cute Shadow and the Mask and Sablier jump out to me because I was taking a look at who's submitted updates to their PBs on the leaderboard in the past little while, and in the month of August, these 3 names in particular have improved their times in a number of games, so they came ready to play.
Yeah. So same games, obviously, as always, just doing half of the decathlon, 5 games for the playoffs. So we'll see Cuphead, Story About My Uncle, The End Is Nice, Spectrable, and DKC. Those were the games of the second turn of the July tournament. So we switch it up just to give like a good chance for the players who might be better at those 5 rather compared to the other 5, and kinda would have had an unlucky draw during the July tournament. So trying to get things fair and equal, and obviously the runners are getting better and better as the time passes, so the competition will be fierce today, but like obviously since we qualified 2 of the best runners, they also have that less stress like going into the tournament. When you don't have to race against Devil Tifa or Brothermain, maybe it's going to be easier on your nerves. So we'll see how it goes for everybody today.
It's also got to be easier for the nerves of Devil Tifa and Brothermain themselves. They pretty sure neither improved their PBs on any of the games following their win, so maybe taking a bit of, a well-deserved break. Though I will say Melwest, who ended up not qualifying and I guess is not competing in the August tournament, has been on fire on the leaderboards, going crazy. Tons of PBs, has jumped 50 points ahead of Devil Tifa to take the top spot on the leaderboard. So still a huge threat, is not out of it. We'll have 2 more chances to qualify. But that's not going to be this tournament. So this is going to be a tournament without Devil Tifa, Brothermain, or Melwest. So our focus is going to be on some other players for the entirety of this tournament. The first one we're taking a look at here after we saw the wonderful intro for Cuphead game number 1. Skunkoff's player card here. He's got pretty good times in a couple games, particularly Trials is kind of his namesake here in the UD. I think he is top 3. It's definitely something he's just taken to. But he's got a couple weaknesses: the Metal Slug time, the Shovel Knight time, both still not quite there. But those are not part of today's games, so look for Skunkoff to be very solid today.
I'm super excited for Sylph Shady's joining us for today's races, because he has like a very interesting player card. Just the first half of each bar is has color in it. That means he's never got into any races. I know the guy has a very tight schedule, and his weekends are usually like something. Like not a good time for them, so it's going to be very interesting to see how well they do today. But Cuphead is about to start, so we are just going through the easy, simple difficulty. Any person trying to go as fast as possible, and it's an interesting game. It has shown in the past to be like a fairly tough one in races, because if you die at any point at all, you will have a very bad time and lots of trouble catching back up. But during the second turn of the July tournament, like all the major players died, and it was some very interesting action, so I do hope it all goes well for all the players. Skunkoff, Sylph Shady in the mask, doing of course a tutorial to grab that extra coin that will allow them to buy a secondary weapon, and the choice they make for the secondary weapon is not that trivial.
Yeah, we've seen a number of players opt for spread. It seems at sort of the top end of the leaderboard. But Roundabout can be a lot easier to work with when you're just starting out, and then there is room to optimize the Roundabout, particularly the Roundabout Super. So if you really want to get crazy and dig in, you could stick with Roundabout and take it all the way to the top. There's still a bit of debate over which is the faster, which is safer, which is more consistent. So it will be interesting to see. We've got spread from all 4 players on stream, so we're not going to get that nice variation in strategies, but at least it is going to be a little easier to follow. The timers are going to be a little bit out of sync for Cuphead due to the load times. It has some pretty big load times, and we don't want those to be a factor, so our timers are going to be discounting those load times, and we'll have to just kind of take stock of where these timers are at when these bosses go down. Skunkoff had a 1:33, I believe it was, so a little bit behind, but still very close.
Yeah, a very close time. You can see in-game time, the time they spent for each boss, and it was like a 2-second variation between, like, the biggest difference was Skunkoff at 32 and Q-Shadow at 34. So it's not on the first boss that it will matter the most, but each second count like a lot in Cuphead. It's very hard to optimize. It's very difficult to be exactly at the right spot all the time. With the spread shot, you want to use for your super, you want all the 8 projectiles to connect with your target, and for that you have to take an intentional hit, as we see on Skunkoff's screen, and just go ham during your iframes. But it's not that easy. You die quite fast. You have only 3 HP. We see Sylph Shady with only 1 HP in a dangerous spot. Q-Shadow finishing Ribian Croak here, and Sylph Shady only 1 HP, dodging those projectiles.
Oh, he's making me so nervous. All right, he finds the knockout. The mask as well. I'm not sure how much he got out of that super. Takes 1 hit, so he's not going to be able to be as aggressive with the others. He is doing the normal supers from far away. He's going to be losing some ground on the other players using the more aggressive strategies, but like you said, deaths are so bad in this game, especially if you die at the end of a boss fight. There are no checkpoints. You're all the way back to the start. And these boss fights, I mean, it's a game about boss fights, so they are all pretty meaty, pretty lengthy, and not dying in Cuphead, very, very important. So while it's possible to always go a little faster in a game like this, in a race, that's safety and consistency definitely important. Skunkov gets the kill on Goopy Legrand, and he's, I think, in the lead. Again, with the timers, it's a little hard to tell. Silshady's pretty close, but I think after Ruby and Croaks, he is going to be the leader.
Yeah, they had like a solid 2 first fights. Quite scary on Goopy Legrand because he lost 2 HP without like doing any invisibility frames strats. He had like to go for the normal kill, and it's all about rhythm. You have to keep track on what the boss is doing, when you can hit them, and how to optimize your damage output. And as soon as you take an unintentional hit, you will get out of sync a little bit, have to find some new ways to kill the boss fast enough. And on Hildeberg, on the top left screen, Skunkov will have to make a choice. He is going to take that first hit, but we saw on a lot of races players doing only one of those 2 damage. Because just it's such a tough fight, players will tend to take a hit at some point, and just playing extra safe proved to be a viable option here.
Saw Cute Shadow take a hit on this phase a little earlier than he wanted to, but he did land one of those multi-hit supers that is so fun to watch, seeing it connect multiple times, bop, 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 as Hilda goes from left to right on the screen. All 4 players now in the Hildeberg fight. Skunkov going to be the first one to get the knockout at 9:55 on the timer. I wish I could see Cute Shadow's timer, because I'm pretty sure that they're quite close.
They're taking another a second hit. Okay, we're good.
There it is.
I don't know why the screens are a little bit weirdly cropped, so we cannot see either Cute Shadow or Skunkov health, so I'm just keeping track of the hits they take. You cannot replenish health at all during the fight, so you have to work with the 3 HP the game gives you. And sometimes, you know, it can get a little bit hectic, as you have only 1 HP, you try to dodge a little bit more, be extra safe, but playing safer means the boss fight gets lengthier, and you know, it can go downhill pretty fast. Skunkov here. This is one of the boss fights where the roundabout is way faster than the spread shot, because it's almost impossible to have all your 4 shots to connect with the hitbox of the boss when you're using the spread. So you have to jump back and forth to try to maximize your damage output. But it's done already quite fast for Skunkov, making great progress.
You're also set up really well for the jumps over the roundabout wheel on that little platform to repeatedly hit Kegni Carnation in the face. It's a lot of fun, but spread's going to be the weapon today, so the players are going to be working around it. Silshady doing a pretty good job of getting in these little hops that kind of increases the number of projectiles that are hitting Kegni, making sure that you're hitting with all 5 instead of 4. Gets the knockout. The mask as well, doing a really good job. Still has 2 hits, can take 1 more. Would rather not, but that's what he's earned for himself in this fight so far. Cutting it pretty close, jumping over that projectile, but he's going to be okay. It's going to pass him by on the bottom on the way back. Here comes the supers, and I think this is probably going to finish him off just about. Yeah, there it is.
Nice. Finishing with 2 HP, you don't want to take any hit on Kegni Carnation. And Beppy the Clown is starting for Skunkov and Cute Shadow. One of the hardest fights of the category, I'd say. It's very easy to take a hit or 2, and the final patterns are quite tough to deal with. You see the runners use super downward because the hitbox of the boss is actually under the screen during the transition. That's true for Beppy the Clown and Honeybottom. So you will see them do that. It's not like just wasting ammo. It's all about knowing where the hitbox actually is. The game tricks you and puts it under the screen. Oh, Skunkov taking a hit here. Careful.
Kind of synchronized between Skunkov and Cute Shadow on these phases for Beppy the Clown. Skunkov's going to be the first one to get the knockout. Cute Shadow, I'm sure, is going to be not too far behind. There it is. very close between these two runners. The Mask going in a different order is taking on Baroness von Bonbon now, as opposed to a little later.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen a comparison in boss order for the second island, and there is like apparently a tiny faster route going first Baroness von Bonbon and not going like the hidden pathway behind the mountain to get to the green matchstick. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's been theorized. I've seen like comparison done by players, and maybe that will end up being the standard route. But apparently, only the Mask chose to do that today. Taking
it's one of those
lot
things
of hits.
where like he did. Yeah, he is. He's on the last phase with only 1 health. This is really bad. The other players are on Jimmy the Great, and it's a pretty easy fight. So the Mask is definitely the one to keep your eyes on right now. He is not opting to use the pea shooter. He was getting really aggressive with the spread, so he takes that death.
He was doing
that is
great, and
it was a really bad death. That is very far into the fight. That is going to cost him. But you're right. He must have almost had her down. It was very quick.
Yeah, he landed on that little jelly bean soldier that pops up regularly on the bottom of the screen, and wow, that's a huge setback. And for now, Skankov, Sleuth Shady, The Mask, and Cute Shadow are our top 4 players for that tournament, so they should be fine making it top 8. But we have a lot of good runners today, and you don't want to have too many mistakes happening and deaths, because obviously it's going to be like some points you have to catch up later on, and you know it's a stressful set of races. It's not that easy, as we see Skankov and Cute Shadow getting that sync kill. Very nice.
That was, I mean, it's pretty predictable that they would stay very close to each other throughout Jimmy the Great. There's not a lot of ways to speed up the fight. It's generally fairly easy to make sure that all of your projectiles are hitting. Kind of like the Mask spread supers here on Baroness von Bonbon, getting really aggressive, landing the hits with all 8 3 times to finish that fight off. That's really good that you have death and then you come back and you show no hesitation with your strats, no, making some kind of on the fly safe strat adjustment that you're not used to. Like, no, just have the confidence that you practiced it and do it the way you practiced it. So I like that. And yeah, the Mask's route is going to continue onto my names are out of order now, but it's Wally Warbles, as the other players are just now starting Baroness von Bonbon.
Yeah, let's see how they deal with that, because the Mask, although they died, had like a very, very good way of dealing with the boss, just being very aggressive on phase 3, getting right into their hitbox and using the spread shot. We see Cute Shadow like trying to set the character up, like, but taking an unintentional hit. Having to be careful now. Second hit, careful, no HP left. Has to be, yeah, very, very precise. Nice. I really wish we could see the in-game timer. We got used to that. But we see that Skankov is out of the boss at almost exactly 11 minutes. Still, Shady is not too far behind. And the Mask is like that death. Probably lost about a minute, so that's going to be about 10 points to catch up on the next 4 games.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to find many of those 10 points in the rest of the Cuphead run. You can certainly, maybe 1 or 2, but it's pretty hard to pick up 10 on Cuphead unless, one of these other players dies. It happened to him in the Mask. It's happened to basically all of the best players in this game at some point in UD. The first time we saw Cuphead, everyone was incredibly solid, and we kind of figured, like, okay, it's the simple category, so I guess it's an easier run, and players aren't going to have too much troubles with it. And then we saw, second time we had Cuphead on stream, it really got a couple people, some people you really wouldn't think it would get. Devil Tifa, Mel West, Brother Main, all of them had very costly deaths in this game. So it's something that every player is going to be concerned about and doing their best to avoid. Wally Warbles here is going well for Skankov and Cute Shadow, who are very close. Yeah, still in the phase changes. They're just sticking to each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the timer here for Q Shadow now is really like 12, 20 or 30. Like it is very close. They got similar time for both, but Skunkov just died as I was watching just the trying to guess on the timer. Damn, like dying on the final phase of Wally Warbles is probably one of the worst deaths in the game, because that's one of the longest bosses, and it is easy to die on that final phase. Like the eggs that are spinning around the boss are tough to dodge. Usually you get there without any super, you have to recharge, and you have like to get your movement spot on, because he's shooting at you also. Like Sylph Shady is doing fantastic here, taking a hit and then killing the boss. Very nice.
When I saw the text pop up in the corner of my screen, I assumed it was the knockout text, and I guess there was a knockout, but it was Skunkov, not Wally Warbles. This is a huge setback for him. He's going to do his best to recover. Cute Shadow taking some hits in Grim Matchstick. You really don't want to take hits early on in this fight, and the mask as well at 1 health on Jimmy the Great. Now this is one of the fights where you can, avoid hits without too much trouble, but you really do want that safety cushion for the last phase or two here, so he's going to be a little concerned, Cute Shadow.
Taking a second hit.
Yeah, this is pretty scary. You really want health here because these flames are just so good at finding you. He's so getting really aggressive on those low clouds. Diagonal supers, trying to find the last bit of damage. He gets caught by the flame.
2 of them jump like in a row, and he got very unlucky also with his clown positioning, because those are random, and sometimes you have like those nice mid area in the middle of the screen cloud, and he was so high up there, and that means that Sylph Shady is actually taking the lead here. Skunkov, the mask, and Cute Shadow taking huge death. That means also Skunkov, the Cute Shadow, and the mask are probably like very close to each other. We'll have to see at the island transition, because the game is divided in 3 worlds, and you have to kill all the bosses to switch to the next world. And so that's when we are going to see like the route difference between the mask, Skunkov, and Cute Shadow resolve itself.
Taking a look at some of the other players, we got Ryuka also on Grim Matchstick, so doing really well, and Sablier. And then I confess, I think that's Ziguigui in the bottom right, and I can't read the bottom middle. It's
Fireman.
Okay.
Ryuka.
Yeah, on Wally Warbles as well. So there's a look at where our off-stream players, again, all the players are competing in this tournament, more than we could possibly fit onto this screen. Some people don't even like 4, so yeah, 8 and 20. Not going to work, but what is going to work is Skunkov going to work on.
Died again. I don't know. I'm pretty sure, because he's back at the start of the Grim Matchstick. While Cute Shadow is just done with the fight, and Sylph Shady actually starts Island 3 in first place with a comfortable lead. The mask is on Beppy the Clown. They still have to kill the Grim Matchstick, so they still have 1 boss to go. And Cute Shadow finally leaving Island 2 that killed so many runners. Skunkov dying a third time. They have to stop the bleeding. It's today you have to be top 8. Should be an easy enough mission for Skunkov. They are fantastic at a lot of games, but Cuphead was one of their forte on the July tournament. When Devil Tifa, Mel West, and Brother Main died, they were the one who took the lead. They're retrying here, getting stuck in a loop, totally understandable on Cuphead. It is a tough game, and once you start dying, it can get into your brain pretty fast.
Meanwhile, Honeybottom is completely done for Sylph Shady. Cute Shadow very far along in this fight, so not too far behind. I'll be curious to see what happens between Sylph Shady and Cute Shadow. It seems like Cute Shadow has some more aggressive strats, but Sylph Shady he didn't die. So I'm not sure if the improved execution can make up this gap between the 2 players. But again, it's not really too important if you lose by a second or 2. It's not like, oh, well, I lost to him and I lost. And the way the UD works is you score points based off of your times, and the points for each game are added up. So regardless of how your opponents are doing, you always want to be doing your best to score as many points as you can. And if you have less points than your opponent, you make them up on the other games. Skunkoff got really aggressive at the end of the Grim Matchstick fight, but it seemed like he knew what he was doing because he picked up the kill. The Mask takes a hit here as well. I think he still can take one more, but he's opting to use the spread shot. And Sylv Shady here on Sally's stage play is getting into probably the hardest part of the fight here in phase number 2, when you have to start worrying about all of the different projectiles and things that start popping up and floating around and spinning. And
it's very hard to keep track of everything. You will see a few times like runners taking a hit, but you want to get at least 2 HP entering the final phase, because they will take that intentional hit right there just so they can go ham on the boss. And if you don't have any HP left, you have to dodge that wave and dodge the projectiles, and it gets like way harder all of a sudden.
Skunkoff now taking, I think that was maybe 2 hits at the start of Honey Bottom, but he's not resetting, so that makes me think it might be 1. That, or he's just confident that this last phase he can handle this without getting hit. There's not too much to really worry about. If you get really aggressive, I've seen people end up in the honey a little bit, but hopefully not going to be a problem. The Mask as well, also getting to the Honey Bottom fight. Cute Shadow is on the second phase of Sally's stage play, and Sylv Shady on the final fight of the goal, the Phantom Express, phase 1. Generally pretty easy, especially if you've got the spread. Just get right up in there and give it to him. Moving on to phase 2. Jumps too high into the chin and takes a hit. That's not what you want, because there are some opportunities to sort of take hits to save time on the final phase.
It is risky jumping there, because obviously you want all your projectiles to connect, but as you said, you want your HP. For that final phase, the heads don't hurt you when you touch them, so that's pretty good. And wow, getting very aggressive there, missing a super sadly. And they will end the fight quite shortly. It is going to be a sub 20 time, which is like probably the main goal for a lot of players, just being sure to have that sub 20. And as soon as you die, it gets very, very hard, almost impossible to get the time. And on the bottom of the screen, we see Fireman using that roundabout weapon we were talking about. Not the best on Honey Bottom, because it's so easy to get all your spread shots to hit the boss, but on some other bosses, that was certainly an advantage.
I think Sally's stage plays a pretty good advantage, because you have to move left and right to dodge a lot of these things that come down in the second phase. But with Roundabout, you're basically still attacking even if you are facing away from the boss, because eventually it's going to come around and hit them. She can kind of do her dive kick over it, I guess, if the timing works out that way, but generally most of your projectiles are going to connect. Cute Shadow is being chased by the lightning here, but does manage to get to safety and get the knockout. I'm not sure what their health situation was at, but based off of the way they were playing, and the fact that the boss's health was low, I wouldn't have been surprised if they actually were on their last hit there, or maybe they just really wanted to be that defensive. 2 hits taken for the Mask.
That's not good, because as I said earlier, you want health here, so they will have to dodge the wave incoming, so breaking the meteorites here, and then the Mask, going ham on. After that, pretty synced with Skunkoff. They both had lots of death, and Skunkoff especially is going to take a huge setback. Still totally, I think, aiming for getting to the final of the August tournament. So next week we are going to do the other 5 games and only qualifying the top 4. So it is a long session, a long month for all those players having to G-Rust and practice 10 games, being sure to be better than their opponent. Overall, it's not about like just winning a few races and being there. You have to be good at the whole 10 games. If you just skip a single game, you will not make it until the end. So it is a long one, it is a tough one, and that's why probably they're not at their best level on every single game, but overall they're very good at completing the 10.
Fireman taking that hit as planned on Sally's stage play, gets the final hit, going to be joining the other players in the Phantom Express pretty soon. Skunkoff moving on to the final phase. Ziguigui gets the knockout, just one final stroll left to King Dice to finish off the category. Skunkoff missing with the spread super. You need to wait till that head comes down for all your shots to connect, otherwise you're going to miss with quite a few. But I like these diagonal supers on the other head. This was something that we saw a couple other players miss. They're not the easiest thing. It's not often that you're using your supers on the diagonal, but he gets a nice finish to the fight. The mask as well.
The mask only 2 HP, it's okay actually. I was scared for them. But
yeah, he was playing really defensive though. He didn't want to try to take the hit and get aggressive at the end.
Once again, I'm always surprised with the Cuphead results, because I was totally expecting Skunkoff to take the lead there, and actually got a major setback, almost like 30 points behind Silv Shady. Good for Silv Shady's play record though, because that's their first race, so you want to score it as high as possible when you have little opportunity to do so.
Yeah, get a nice deathless run on the board. Not sure how that run will compare to PB. Silv Shady's PB is in 1808, so it's definitely not going to be quite on that pace, because that is a fantastic time in Cuphead, but it is going to be a solid time. The mask has finished. Ziguigui, I assume, has actually gone and talked to King Dice at some point, so he is done. Fireman done now. In just a moment as he strolls into Inkwell Hell. And new player on stream for us, MC166, is about to start Honeybottom here.
He's a solid streamer. He's been like streaming all his practice. I've seen a lot of the run, and cool player overall. I do really encourage you guys, by the way, to follow the players and to see what they're doing with the games. The UD is still going for a long time, because after the August tournament we'll have a September tournament, and then we'll go during October for the final phase, and until the live finals on the 27th and 28th of October. So still have a long way to go, still lots of practice to put in those games. Everybody still has the opportunity, even if they don't make it today, on the top 8 to qualify for the finals. So we'll see how well that goes, and the player will switch obviously for the next game, as we see the MC finishing the game. They have huge load times. Their in-game timer is only at 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is a pretty big disparity, and it might seem like, oh, they're quite behind, but when you take it those load times and keep things nice and fair, you can see MC's run actually pretty good. Got really aggressive on Honeybottom, was down to 1 health, but was able to clutch it out. As we see Ziguigui loading up game number 2, we'll get to it in a moment. But for now, this it's difficult. You set the cutoff to keep games moving at a certain pace in the UD, but when a game is dependent on in-game time and not real time, you can't just cut someone off because their computer's bad. So we will follow MC166 through at least for a little bit here, going into the Sally stage play fight with 2044 on the clock. Could maybe get a 23-24 minute time. We'll see how it goes. Phase 1.
It is a tough one. It's probably one of the fight that killed me the most the first time I played through the game. The way Sally moves, like the Dalsium dive kicks and all the projectiles on screen, it's very hard to keep track of. But as soon as you understand the movement, it's actually pretty easy to dodge. Plus, the strat with the damage you take on the third phase makes it so much easier. So it's It's a good one to know. There are like some fights you don't have to practice so much, but Sally's stage play definitely one of those. You don't use that much super though. You just try to dodge everything and get your shots to connect. Keep track of everything at the same time.
MC166 is playing very defensively on this fight, is not hitting with very many of these spread projectiles all that often, but getting a couple extra cars here at the end, at the start rather, of the third phase. Unwelcome guests, but has so much health here, is going to be able to take the hit from this wave and then some to finish off Sally's stage play. Very solid fight. I guess this is just sort of their play style. This is just really solid, consistent play that has earned them a pretty good time. But not quite good enough. As we can see, Time's Up was very close. Only one fight left before would get on the leaderboard for that Cuphead time.
They will have time to finish. The cutoff is scripted with the time, but
okay.
It's like a little mismatch. They will still have like all the time to beat the game because their in-game timer is barely at 21 minutes and the cutoff is at 30 minutes, obviously in-game.
Oh yeah,
so
9 minutes for the Phantom Train fight. It would be a total disaster if that didn't happen. So we won't see that time probably on the leaderboard for a little bit while they finish that run, but it will absolutely count and earn them honestly a pretty good number of points. That sounds like a 160 point run or so.
Yeah, they should have time. Obviously we are getting ready for game 2, except for DMC, which finishes Cuphead nicely. And a story about my uncle is a nice change of pace and visuals compared to Cuphead. First-person platformer using a nice grappling hook to get from point A to point B. Lots of skips, lots of storytelling also. So in a 30-minute game you have about like 20 minutes of gameplay and 10 minutes of cutscenes and loads. And it is an interesting one in tournaments because we've seen, especially on the later stages, players struggling because you have to stay very focused. It's very precise movement-wise on some skips and some movement, and we definitely have seen players having trouble getting on there. And I'm interested to see who's on spot 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, because that's where the cutoff is happening, and that's where the action is going to be the more tense.
Yeah, we saw some of the runners who we think will probably go on to qualify for the top 8 and be, tough competitors for the top 4 and top 2. And, well, I was going to say we probably might not see them again because we are going to focus on the battle for the top 8. So 7, 8, 9, 10 is going to be our focus. But then things didn't go so great for, like, say, Skunk Off, who is actually in 12th. So I would have thought Skunk Off would have not been on stream because he would be near the top, but he's actually below the 7, 8, 9, 10. It's actually a tie, 7, 8, 9, 9 between LF and Zagwigwi, sitting at 168 points. And again, we see that 0 for MC, but that's going to come in pretty soon and probably put them in 13th or so. And at the top of the leaderboard, some names we didn't even see on stream. Ghost Death, all capital letters. Kerpuik. We saw a bit of Ryuka. All of them had really great runs, and then of course we saw Soul Shady, who ended up finishing first overall with that 1908.
Yeah, it is interesting to see new names. It is pretty cool to see Ghost Death here. He's been practicing a lot. He's actually a PUBG top player. I don't know, he has a team and got stuck into speedrunning somehow. He's from a very different competitive world and just like got into the UD and practiced a ton. He was not ready for the July tournament, but definitely has put like some very solid practice overall. I'm very excited to see them on the top spot here, because when you are not so experienced with races, it can be kind of complicated. I know personally it does get into into my brain, like into my skull, very, very fast. I get stressed out and do not perform very well under pressure. But apparently for some other runners, they do fantastic. And I do hope Skunkoff comes back there. As we see MC's time being updated, they got 149 points with a final time of 24 minutes.
I was just a little bit off, 1 point off of tying for that 13th place. It's cool to see Soma. It's not so cool to see Soma having not finished yet, but Soma came and did the tutorial for Symphony of the Night. No, not Symphony of the Night. Aria of Sorrow.
Close enough.
The other white-haired cool guy, Castlevania protagonist. Still has the fantastic time for that game in that category. And sometimes we bring in an expert to show guys how it's done and stuff like that, and then they just get so interested in the UD that they stick around and start playing in other games. So I was really glad to see that name there. I hope the other games go better for them.
They're going to do only 2 games, I think. They just didn't practice everything. Just wanted to be to get a taste of the action today. But actually, with the way the UD is going, it's very hard to be on top 8, to be solid at all 10 games, and depending on the practice, you can get up there, at least for the playoffs, with not every game, so we'll see. I know Ryuka might not do the full 10 games. They have not learned the end is nigh yet, but being like on 4th place after Cuphead, that bodes well for them, so we'll actually see how that goes. I don't know on what player we are going to focus today. For a story about my uncle. I know we will focus later on the spot 7s to 10, just to see where the cutoff is going to happen. But we need to see Skunkoff performing very well on a story about my uncle, because he was the outsider, the underdog for the July tournament, compared to all the names we already knew. Melwest, Devil Tifa, and Bordermain were some of the top player for the past season, so we know them very well. But Skunkoff surprising everybody during the July, and it was very entertaining to see them there. And now that means they're like on the top, like they should be qualifying for at least the finals, and being like on the 14th place after Cuphead is very surprising.
Yeah, I think this is not going to be sort of an omen of things to come here. I think I fully expect Skunkoff to bounce back across the next couple games, though with the format of trimming to top 8 after only 5 games, it does mean there are less games for you to come back from this kind of situation as we move on to game number 2 in earnest. It is a pretty slow start with a walk through this workshop area here. We're going to be looking at Sablier, Kunine, The Mask, and Ziguigui as our 4 on stream for this game. But as soon as these guys pick up their crazy anti-grav suit here in this cupboard, maybe not as soon as, because you do pick it up and put it on and then keep walking for a little bit. But once you see green, once you see floating platforms and mystical blue energy, then you know that the run has started in earnest, and then things get pretty crazy pretty quick.
Yeah, so as soon as we get through that weird teleporter or uncle build, we'll get to that crazy world where everything is floaty and the platforms are moving in the air, and you have like the ability to power jump and to power leap, so do big jumps and big leaps forward, and that's all you're starting the game with. But the game still being a little bit open, the few first jumps are very, very tight, and they decide everything on the first level because it is cycle based. So you want to be sure that you nail the first few jumps, so it all starts well for you. And then you will grab the first grappling hook charge, and from that, the first level gets very, very technical, so we'll see how well that goes. They are aiming for about sub 5 minutes real time for the first level, but that time can be very, very hard to get.
All right, the mask is going to be the first one through. The cutscenes due probably less to optimized movement in the workshop and more just due to stream delay and things, but misses the first jump and wasn't happy with that second jump. You can reset at just about any time to go back to the checkpoint, so just kind of reading that jump wasn't right immediately and opted to hit that reset button. So his cycles are going to be quite different now.
Sablier almost making it on the first cycle. They did not lose time dying there because it's all cycle based and the cycle keeps on going even if you die, but barely not making it.
So it looks like Kunine is going to be the first one to get past this first cycle-based thing. It is definitely not the last. Waiting here for this platform to creep around and come into view. There will be plenty of rocks and things that are grapple points that will be moving on cycles as well. And hey, speaking of grapple points, that means you've got a grappling hook.
Yeah, finally the game gets into its core gameplay. So you have that grappling hook that actually pulls you forward towards where you grapple to, and you have to play around the momentum that gives you to propel you to the place you want to go to. And sadly, actually having a trouble getting the way they're getting their way here. I'm pretty scared. Sablier is a very, very solid runner, but clearly did not perform as well as they expected on the first tournament. They are like practicing on the UD since season 3 and like getting solid time everywhere, but never performed too well during tournaments. So I do hope they do at least reach their expectation for the July tournament, the August tournament.
The mask nails the out-of-bounds section. There is one really tough jump. Most of them are okay, but there's one really tough jump where you need to find the correct part of the geometry to avoid triggering the sort of death reset point while you're walking around very close to the bottom of the level. The out-of-bounds goes well for all the players. The follow-up is pretty difficult, though.
Yeah, you have to nail the couple of jumps. Kunine having trouble standing on that rock. That makes it at the end. The out-of-bounds section actually killed a lot of players during the July finals. Double Tifa and Melwest had trouble making it on the first try, so pretty happy to see the players here making it nicely. And then we get the second charge of our grappling hook, so now we have that extra safety. If you miss the first grapple, you can backtrack with the second charge to safety, and the game gets safer and safer. But obviously using safety strats, you are losing time, so you don't want that to be happening too much. But still, it's a good thing to have, and that's probably why the Sanctuary, the first level we're seeing here, is so hard at the start, is because like you have to commit.
Yeah, the game does start asking, it's like, oh, you've got 2 grapples now. All right, do 2 grapples to get to the next safe spot. And spoiler alert, you do get a 3rd grapple. You even get some rocket boots, and the game starts asking you to do things that use all 3. But not always. And so anytime you get to save a grapple, that grapple can be used to correct something that has not gone so correct. And the players are going to be very thankful for that. But for now, they're just going to be using this extra grapple mostly to go a little faster. And particularly later on, they're going to be doing a lot of skips. So, a lot of the intended grapple sequences that use up all your grapples and your rocket boots, they're going to be approaching it from a different angle or doing it entirely differently. So you end up, a little more often than maybe you should. You do have these extra grapples that you can use to play around with. The mask is going to be the first one out of the Sanctuary section, followed by, I'm pretty sure that was the Guigui. No, I was sure, based off of where he was, that he had triggered the start of the next section. There's sort of just an arbitrary point you need to pass, and then when you do, It triggers some narration and then a fade to black, and you go to the next area, even if you're uh, foolishly bonking your head on something below the geometry. So there it is. Second time around,
Yeah.
Zigwigwi does hit the geometry. I'm not sure if it was just a misunderstanding of where the trigger was or what, but that was fairly costly.
Yeah, you can miss that final jump above, like you have like a broken bridge and you have to grapple above that, and the trigger is right after it. And I guess that I don't know how the confusion went, but the second time around they pay close attention to that. The mask is almost like going to be at the end of that cutscene as sadly it gets in there. It's still fairly close between all the players. The most important levels are coming to your way. But first, the village is not the hardest one. You got a couple of skips, but it's a short level. We can see Gosdes in the cutscene as Ryuka, and the players just close together. No one took like a huge lead, so that's good for the tournament, and that's especially good for our player, because being on the 7th or 8th spots is not the end of the world. You can totally have a good run and jump back to second or first place if the other runners don't do that great. It's all about like doing the best you can and seeing where that gets you. So you have to stay focused on that race. Very nice landing on the pebbles there for the mask.
Yeah. There is an opportunity here to preserve a grapple. The game wants you to use both your grapples so that you can't do this that the mask is doing right now. But by landing on a rock and resetting his grapple count, he gets to keep that extra grapple and get directly to the end here. And the skips are not done. Avoiding a trigger to start a cutscene there. And I guess he hit that trigger, so he is going to have to reset and try this again. Meanwhile, the other players are all catching up. Kunine very close as well, looking for that rock grapple point, finds it, and here he's going to go right over the jump, so he's going to be taking this section a little more safely, a little more carefully. Sablier also coming up onto this section. See how he decides to approach it. There's the first grapple. He's looking down.
Yeah, he's trying to grapple onto that small rock, and you see the runners like actually chaining it very quickly with a power leap, because you cannot stand for too long on that little rock. So you just want the game to recognize that you landed on something and just get going as fast as possible. It is not easy to do correctly, and as is that cutscene skip that sadly it gets in a very messy way, but barely dodges the box where the trigger box for the cutscene. That cutscene is crazy long. It must last at least be at least, I don't know, 2 minutes long, and you certainly don't want to get caught there.
Absolutely worth it to reset and try again to get the cutscene skip. You can miss it a couple times, honestly, and still save time than watching that cutscene. Sablier moving through some of these archways that Zigwigwi also is. Zigwigwi bonks his head. That is the kiss of death in this game. You lose all your momentum, and generally that's a pretty easy way to find yourself stranded in these large open areas. He actually does a pretty interesting strat there. He grapples on the ground and then long jumps off of it, and it works out for him moving through the next section. The mask is already moving on to this cave section, which is very dark, and is going to be looking for some grapple points on the wall in the pitch blackness. Here is this big skip.
Yeah, this one is kind of hard to... it's very hard to be sure where you're at and what's your speed looking like, but the mask having like fantastic execution so far makes it look very easy. I got scared for a little bit, but actually no problem at all. It is pitch black. You can try to adjust your gamma a little bit, but you cannot really see where you're at. You have to use like very tiny cues, like the shape of the rocks and the other part of the caverns, and the fact that your cursor, your crosshair, glows as soon as you can grapple onto something. But it is a scary one. It is quite hard to learn, but yeah, apparently it's no problem for the mask here today.
We'll see how it is for some of our other players. Sablier didn't like wherever he was there, lost in the darkness, ended up resetting back to the checkpoint. Ziguigui setting up for this as well. He was looking at a pretty different place. There are some tricks you can do in terms of moving or not moving your mouse at certain points, but it looks like Ziguigui's going to get this skip. He kind of came out pretty wide there, so I was a little worried, but it wasn't so wide that he couldn't find that grapple. And now the follow-up here, it looked like he maybe touched the ceiling a little bit with his head, and there was another bonk. So is he far? Okay, I think he can make this work.
No,
another
barely
bonk.
not.
Oh.
And they have to start all over again. The mask took a tiny, not costly death to restart a little bit, but you take 2 checkpoints in that game, and dying right after the second one in that level, and dying right after the second one is very nice. So they will beat level 3 fairly shortly, and Ziguigui has to start all over again. Sablier makes his way towards an optional checkpoint here, but still very nice to have if you happen to be there. And yeah, he's very close behind the mask. We'll start that, I don't know, worm section where the boss will scream at you if they see you moving. They're like dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. They don't notice you if you don't move.
And the screaming you'd think it would be a lot less threatening than the biting, but it will actually scream you right off a platform and send you into a pit. I'm not sure if there's any opportunities to actively save yourself with the grapple. I honestly never tried. It was generally a reset, but either way, the players don't want that to happen to them. So there's if you're doing it right, there's basically one spot where you're going to have to wait. Thanks to your unconventional approach, because of the skips you've been doing, you come into this section at a different angle, and you can kind of get out of there before. Okay, Sablier, I think, pretty sure hit the trigger for the next area and then started getting up close and personal.
We can see the dialogue going on.
So he's going to be okay.
Forms. Yeah, as soon as you hit the dialogue, like the level transition, you can do whatever you want. You can go explore out of bounds. You can land on the worm's head if you want. It doesn't matter at all. The game doesn't care. It doesn't freezes you in place also, which is actually pretty nice, because those are long dialogues going on, and being able to kill your boredom in any fashion is good for speedrunners, because they tend to get frustrated when they cannot play.
I think that's true of most gamers, but definitely speedrunners. The mask showing off some nice tech you can do with these windmill fans. You're sort of intended to hold on with your grapple the whole way. But that is just some geometry in space. And so when that thing is flat enough, you can land on it, narrow as it may be. And that's going to allow you to do a long jump off of it, and it's also going to reset your grapples. So it's a nice opportunity to go just a little faster. It's a little tricky sometimes, especially when the fans are on certain cycles that don't quite line up with what you're doing. But it worked out beautifully there for the mask, who is well out in front through this Starhaven.
That checkpoint killed the most players, so it's actually pretty hard to propose you high enough to get on that platform. And as I said that, probably cursed them, but it is not the normal way, and you are skipping a checkpoint, and you are just using 3 grapples, where the game kind of wants you to use like twice of that, landing in the middle, and then you have not saved yet, no checkpoints, and you get in that windmill section, and windmills are kind of weird. You have to get very close to be able to grapple onto them, and okay, they barely make it, but that's good. You really don't want to die, and they still haven't touched a checkpoint, so they have to be extra careful on that final rock section here. But yeah, they will get that checkpoint, very nice. Oh no, they don't even bother. Nice, just going full ham.
I mean, it's nice for now until, or maybe something bad happens. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if that was a checkpoint that they just leapt over.
Still no checkpoint.
So this is pretty...
Here we go. Okay, we can breathe now. Very nice. So
100% safe.
Yeah, those tiny symbols on the ground are the checkpoints, and yeah, they're when you play casually through the game, it really feels to me like it felt like there were checkpoints each time you landed. But being creative with the way you go through the game, you can really skip a lot of those, and just like because it's so slow to actually land when you still have grappling charges. And we see Sablier getting the rocket rocket boots that boost you, and the mask barely above before them got them as well. So now they have like the best safety measure ever. They can use that just once per landing and save themselves from falling. It's a very nice upgrade to have. But it's also kind of tricky to use correctly. In a speedrun, you want to not to use them too late, or you will be sent flying too far. And it's used like fairly precisely on a couple of places, and if you don't have to, you will not use them.
Yeah, you mentioned that it can save you, and it certainly can, but it's definitely your last resort to save yourself. In some cases, you might even opt to reset, even if you could save yourself, just because they give you such a big boost that you'll end up probably overshooting by a lot, whatever you wanted to land on. The mask going for a skip here in the Starhaven village, and he got it. There's two ways to do it, and one is a little more aggressive. He went for the safer strategy, where you fall between the two outstretched bridges, and that triggers a checkpoint that it will warp you to. Without triggering the cutscene that comes with it, which is, again, a very long cutscene, very important to skip it. You can just use your grapples and rocket boots to fly over the entire thing and land pretty much on the other side of the village.
Sablier landing on that windmill. I'm not sure.
Is he gonna be okay?
They're very low compared to where they wanted to be. Okay, using the rocket boots there should make the trick. Still having one grapple charge, very nice. But they landed on that windmill very low and then fell off, and I had to grapple again. I got scared. Speaking of village skip, do you remember that strat that Brothermain only was using on the previous race in the final of July tournament? They were grappling on a rock, then hitting the reset button, keeping the charge, the grapple tether to a rock further, and then having like that one extra charge to be able to skip the village entirely. That was a very sick strat, and sadly did not end up working for them because they died right after the village skip and had to do it all over again. But I would be pretty happy to see more runners do that because it seemed faster.
It definitely did, and it was definitely just really cool to see some player do something new and unexpected in the route. Definitely caught us off guard.
Oh, and, well, we see Q9 do it right now, actually, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
It is a really cool strategy.
So you see, you saw them like tethering very far, and still like after using the rocket boots, having that one final charge, which allowed them to tether to the upper leftmost part of the village, where there's no dialogue box that would trap you. And yeah, it is a very nice strat, and I have to try it myself, but I really think that's one of the best looking strat in that speedrun.
Q9 has been looking pretty solid in this game. Haven't seen much of them from many of the tournaments that we've held throughout the course of the season. So it was this is the first time for me seeing them play, and I've been very impressed. They're moving and about to trigger the... Oh no, I'm one section away. This cutscene that the Mask and Sablier are in, and have been waiting very patiently and elegantly, have behaved themselves, waiting for this cutscene to trigger to move to the last section of the game. Zagwigwi, I'm not sure which fan he is stuck to currently. All I can see is that he is stuck to a fan.
This is the fan section right before the village. So there are kind of far Oh, okay, using the... Okay, nice. Actually, using the rocket boots so late was very good for them because they landed as soon as they used them. So it was not too much of a time loss. But going for just that skip without using it is actually super scary. The mask doing a very nice setup for that early cave skip, not using the hidden rock behind that glass floating ice block. Very nice. And like, it seems like Zigwigwi is very far behind, but they're actually, the other 3 runners are actually doing fantastic, being at 22 minutes on the level transition. The mask is on like sub 30 pace by a good margin actually, and sub 30 is not an easy feat on that game. Like, it is an achievement by itself.
Last grapple for the mask to land and recharge.
Nice.
It's not easy to land on top of those, so that was a nice last-minute save there. The rocket boots really doing some work in getting some skips going in the ice caverns. It starts now, and it won't really stop until we get all the way to the end. But this is a really tricky sequence, and with these last few grapples, he is going to be pretty much out of that danger zone, and is going to be pretty safe to move on. None of the other players yet have yet to join the mask in the ice cave. Sablier just about to, as soon as we get loaded in, and here we are.
Okay, so we see the good old regular grappling through the ice. You have to find the tiny spot you can grapple onto through the block here. Finally gets it, second try. Then use your rocket boots to get onto the next section. So supposedly you are doing an entire room with falling blocks and triggering the next section of the level, but speedrunners do not care. They skip that, knowing exactly where they have to be and recharging whenever they can. And wherever they can, even if it has to be out of bounds, they're grappling charges and rocket boots. Very nice movement here by Sablier, landing on that rock.
He had so much height off of that one grapple that I wouldn't have been surprised if he could have actually aimed up and just totally skipped that first rock. It would be very aggressive, but and I wasn't even sure it would be possible, but after seeing that jump there, I think it definitely might have been. So very good movement from Sablier. Is probably not going to be able to catch the mask, who is also playing fantastic. Like you said, all 3 players who are in the ice caves right now are just playing very, very well. Ko9 in there as well as Zigwigwi is pretty far along through Starhaven, but just a little bit left to go. And the mask is going to be looking to rocket boost through as much of these caves as he can.
Oh no, not too far! Okay, nice.
Okay, beautiful.
You can softlock here if you go too far. You have to touch those tools. You are supposed to fix... Oh no, that was not good. But the checkpoint is fine. You have to fix your rocket boots, but you never broke them, but you still have to fix them. And if you don't, the game just get you stuck in the dialogue and you cannot move and you cannot go back up. So okay, nice save from the mask, once again playing fantastically. I really wonder where our top 4 is at, because I would not be surprised at all if the mask was in first place in that race. Like, he's doing very, very well, not letting anything stop him. Lost about a minute on the first level due to cycles and getting into the run, but since then they've done just great.
Ko9 has been on a journey trying to do this first skip through the ice caves. Fell down, actually got up to the second rock, and then fell down to the first rock and used his final grapple to save himself there, and then was trying to get back to the second rock, and he finally does get it. Was making me pretty nervous watching it. The mask is pretty far along. He's in this section where you've got actually 2 different ways you can go, sort of a high road and a low road, and he's going to be grappling these crystals to recharge his grapples mid-flight. So you have to make sure that you save yourself at least 1 grapple with which to actually shoot at the crystal to recharge them. If you're completely out, then you are also out of luck. But he's moving on to this final section, this downward sloped section. It's a lot of fun, lots of repeated grapples, no landing, recharging off of the crystals. And it's if you want to be pretty aggressive with your grapples, constantly pulling yourself forward as much as you can, then it becomes pretty tricky. But you can play it quite a bit safer and just kind of go for a leisurely swing, as long as you get that connection there,
Oh no!
which he does. He misses the crystal.
Yeah, okay, you still have
he's gonna
rocket boost to
boost, but
save
is he going to
them.
be able to get
Yes.
there? Okay.
I don't know why this is so. It is like, seriously, it's not hard. Like, if you know what you're doing and you're going through it slowly, it's okay. But the runners like just aim for the furthest point they can grapple onto and just get the momentum going. And sometimes they just rush past the crystal, and it can be very, very hard to just get your charges back. And it is a part where we've seen way more runners die than they should have, just due to being the final part of the game, having to go fast, obviously, trying to do a speedrun, and there's no compromise for those guys. Like, they're just going as fast as possible all the time.
So there is quite a bit of talking and a little bit of walking left to do for the mask, but he is basically done, and his time is going to be great. Sablier is coming in, charging in behind. Also in this final grapple section, Konine looks like he's getting to the boots repair section. He wasn't able to get really deep into the cave, so he has to walk over to this campfire to repair his boots. And Sablier gets that point-blank crystal shot and is going to be able to get a nice big long rocket boost towards the final cave. Yep. And Ziguigui ran into some troubles in Starhaven, but is now in the ice caves and is executing this really difficult skip, getting inside the geometry for the refresh. Kunine going to be able to save himself with the... Wait, okay. Yes, he is going to be able to save himself with the rocket boots.
Sometimes you will get into that ice sheet there, trying to recharge your grappling in boots, and you will not get that charge for some reason. Like, it's clearly not intended. You are clipping into the object, and the games, I don't know exactly how the game register whether you're landing on something or not, but clearly there's something going on there, and I'm always a bit scared, for the players, but they all got it quite nicely. You can see Kunine actually like playing very safe in that section, using his boots a bit too often, losing a bit of time to land back on his feet and to be able to go forward. But it's okay. They're almost at the end.
They're actually using a little secret area here on this ledge. You see a little something there on the ground. It's a cute little Olaf-looking snowman they threw into this platform. There's lots of little areas hidden all throughout the game that are mostly there, are supposed to be there just for Easter eggs and little secrets and achievements and things. But this one turns out to be useful for the speedrun, approaching it from an unintended angle and then sort of leaving through the intended angle, giving us a nice shortcut across that big open chasm, and moving into some of the final sections now for Konine, using those rocket boots like you said, and we'll see if he's gonna get inside the caves here. There's a checkpoint in the little igloo looking things. He doesn't need it. Go straight over them into the next section. It's looking pretty solid. The rocket boots, is really not afraid to pull those out and get what he can out of them.
Yeah, that's a nice section. Going a bit slower than the mask, but making good work and not dying, not hesitating also. We see a nice thing with the hands, different places, but same movement with Ziguigui and Kunine. Ziguigui having trouble clearly on that game. Still a good time. It's not easy to get sub 40 on A Story About My Uncle, but missing a little bit too much of all these charges and having to save themselves a little bit too much, having trouble to make that skip here. You have a small platform you can land on if you're not sure, but they're really trying to go for everything, which is like nice, obviously.
Another sequence of landing on things that you probably aren't really supposed to be landing on, but it works out quite well, especially in the ice caves. Squeaky. It gets pretty dark usually on the outskirts of the level. They didn't really just put lights there because they didn't think players were going to be looking there. So it makes it a little hard to navigate sometimes when you can't quite see the edges of the geometry the way you want to. But speedrunners will make do. Konine finished with the final downward ascent and landing safely on that. It's kind of narrow, this bridge at the end. It can be a little nerve-wracking, but once you get that first land, then you've got your rocket boots and your grapples that you can get to the end safely. Squeaky barely getting enough height to find that grapple. This is the section where your rocket boots are supposed to be broken.
I don't know why you didn't make that. That's weird. They should have. They were barely too low. But the rocket boots here are so nice to have, because grappling slowly your way, pulling you upward, is actually harder than it looks. And all the rocks and objects you can grapple onto are placed, so you have to do it in a certain order. But yeah, if your boots, it's so much easier.
Getting hung up on some rocks there, but that's probably not too bad, because if those rocks weren't there, his angle was set up so that he might have gone shooting all the way out the other side of the cave, like we were worried about for the mask. So it's going to be happy to be done with that section. The rocket boots that were totally fine are now still totally fine after being repaired. We got some other runners here on stream. Ghost Death is either being loaded in or is already finished. There he is, about to finish. This was he finished really well in Cuphead. I think was second.
Yep.
And it was really cool to see a player from having success outside of speedrunning and then coming into speedrunning and continuing to have success, and is almost done here. Is going to be finishing behind a handful of other people, but is going to have a solid time in a story about my uncle. And that's good to see. Silv Shady getting to the rocket boots repair as well. So fairly close to Squeaky, and Konine still chatting it up here with the uncle.
Silv Shady was first, leaving Cuphead, but I feel like they're going to lose some ground during a story about my uncle. It is not done, obviously. We still have 3 games to go, and players have their personal preferences. Like those games are very different from each other. Right after that, we will have The End Is Nigh, not a platformer, like a precise one, and it will test their skills on a different, complete set of abilities. And I don't know who's going to be first, but I feel like the leaderboard is going to change like constantly. We are going to see some new runners on stream for the next game, and maybe it will stabilize at some point, and maybe it will get all decided at the on the final game. Silv Shady had the rocket boots here and did not use them. I'm not sure why, but they got stuck somehow. Dying and taking a huge death, having to do all that again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw them at this section a while ago, and yeah, this section is all ice, which thankfully is not slippery, but not so thankfully it will repel your grapples. So despite having 3 grapples, Silv Shady having misplaced the rocket boots, just no opportunity to really save yourself, kind of at the mercy of getting the correct angle on that first rocket boots. So this time, 3rd time around, I suppose it is, that section went well. Out to the frozen platform behind the pillar. It is pretty hard to find the spot that you need to, but it looks like that he has, as Squeaky is using a high jump into a rocket boots to traverse this final tunnel and start the last cutscene that Konine is already most of the way through. You don't get to keep your rocket suit as you grow up. This is a fast forward. You're an adult at this point, coming back to the workshop where you first explored as a kid. So you are back on human legs, walking very carefully through this final section.
You are still, even though you have no suit, like very, very slow. It is like nobody is walking that slow in real life. Like it is like a big moment for the character, filled with nostalgia or something, because that should not be so slow. Silph Shady is actually in a scary spot because the final part of the game, like the dialogue and the epilogue, are quite long, and I'm not sure they will make the 40 minutes cutoff. So you do have for each game to beat the game within a certain time. For Story About My Uncle, it's 40 minutes. If you are not able to beat the game in 40 minutes, you it's done for you for that game. You have no points and you have to move on. And Silph Shady had 199 points, 98 points on Cuphead, so they just had to have like a 37 or 38 minutes to be like in a good spot for the tourney, but I feel like they are not going to have the time to beat A Story About My Uncle, and that is going to be very scary for them because they will have to catch all those points they missed on in the next 3 games, and it should be okay to be on top 8, but it's not free at all. You have to still be a good speedrunner on all those games. So I'm worried, actually.
Yeah, this is, I mean, for all the reasons you listed, but also because you've got 3 more games to play, and this is not anywhere close to Silph Shady's best in this game. Has a 33-18, so it's 5 minutes off of PB. Did play well in Cuphead, but when a player does that much worse than their PB in a game, you start to wonder if that's going to affect them mentally. And even if Silph Shady puts up 0, like you said, it could be possible to still make the top 8, but only if you're playing very solidly in your remaining 3 games. And it's not easy to take a bad beat like this might turn out to be and then come back and play your best in the other games. I know both you and I are both pretty emotional players, and that kind of thing is really not easy to deal with. So we'll see. Silph Shady is going to get to the end of this tunnel and trigger the final cutscene, which is more or less the end of the game. But you do have to actually reach the end of the goal in the cutoff time, and this cutscene is definitely longer than a minute. So this is going to be a 0 for Silph Shady.
It is close for Zigwigwe, actually, also.
Oh, no.
They're barely going to make it, or they're going to have like a 40-15 or something.
He's getting hung up on the corners.
Yeah, you have to move faster. We are following the player's timer, so we may have like a bit of difference between what we're showing and what they're going to submit, but still, this is heartbreaking because those runners put a ton of practice on those games and barely are not going to make it. And yeah, that's the cutoff. So we'll see what time they submit. But I'm scared. I'm scared.
Yeah, Zigwigwe was doing everything. He was doing the box hop to cut the corner in the workshop, to just save every little second. And maybe the load times or whatever, stream delay, yeah. And he does actually just get under. It is a big difference. There is a cutoff. The way the points work is a certain time is allotted as the 200 point mark, and it scales linearly down to a certain time that is the 100 point mark, and that is the cutoff. And if you don't make the cutoff, if you don't get 100, you get 0. So that is 100 points that you lose out on, even if you're just a couple seconds away from that cutoff. So it is super important, and it can absolutely just decide your tournament life. So that is I need to see. But for now, we can take a look at game number 3, the end is nigh. Moving super fast-paced, precision platformer. It's going to be testing a totally different set of skills for these players, the way that the UD does. We're probably going to see some players be more or less comfortable with this game compared to others. And we can take a look at the leaderboard for the times that have come in. So far, I think we'll probably see a time come in for Silv Shady and Ziguigui.
I don't.
Even if they do get the 0?
I don't think so. If you don't, you cannot submit if you are above.
Oh, it just gives
40
you the
minutes.
dash.
Yeah. So that means they did not finish in time. We saw Penguin, Ziguigui, and Silv Shady trying to beat the game as fast as they could, but did not make it. And as you can see, like the difference between LF 10th place with both game doing great, 291, is like 93 points ahead of Silv Shady, and that's one entire game. Like, even if you're doing very, very poorly and just score 100 points on a game, Silv Shady would have to score almost 200, which is like a very, very, very good run on any of the Endisnai, Spectrable, or DKC to be able to compete. And that's looking grim. But Ghostdesk, Q9, Fireman, and LF, being at spots 7, 8, 9, and 10, are very close to each other. 308 and 8 for Ghostdesk and 291 for LF. So less than 20 points between the two of the four of them. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who makes it, because definitely Fireman, LF, Q9, and Ghostdesk are able to beat the games in time, but only 8 will pass, so we'll see.
We're seeing some familiar names in the top 5. Capriquic, The Mask, Cute Shadow, Ryuka, Sablier. We can see Skunk Off in number 6 has bounced back quite a bit. Was 12th, I think, coming out of Cuphead due to, I think it was more than one bad death, but with one of the better Story About My Uncle times, I think second overall, has bounced all the way back up into 6th, so has gone from being below the 7, 8, 9, 10 that we're going to be looking at to above, which is where we expected to see him after his amazing performance in the July tournament. And he'll be joining Sablier, Ryuka, Cute Shadow, The Mask, and Capriquic, who have just been doing just solid so far on the other 2 games. And solid will be enough to make the top 8. There's I say solid, and it seems like I'm maybe kind of downplaying things. Yeah. But when I say solid, I mean these guys are really speedrunning this game, and then this game, and then this game, and all 5 games, and like they've got to this level in for some players it's weeks. They've had a couple months to play around with all of these games, and to get to the solid point is incredibly impressive. So. And then also to reproduce it in a race when you've only got the one shot is, there's a reason that that not everyone can just come out and do solid the way that these guys are, but they are. So they have taken the top 6, I would say, are looking really solid, and then like you said, the 7th and 8th are kind of up for grabs here a little bit between these other players. That's going to be a really interesting fight. There's some big question marks. There's, in that 7, 8, 9, 10, there's players I'm really not familiar with, haven't seen come out to any of the previous tournaments. So I'm really not sure really what to expect from some of these other games. Could be some really big strengths or some really big weaknesses for them.
It's, I think it is so solid. I think those times we're seeing are better than the times we seen during the July tournament. Even though in July there was the second turn, so we just had the best top 8 players. But like seeing Capriquic at 190 on Cuphead and 174 on A Story About My Uncle, or Ryuka at 186 and 160 on Cuphead and A Story About My Uncle, those are very, very good scores, and good scores means good times. So it is very impressive, and actually the battle for the top 8 is going to be way harder than I expected. I know like some players are just aiming for that bronze star we are awarding for the top 8 today. Just players who just want their player card customization going and know they don't have any chance to, because maybe the other 5 games are kind of weaker, but still the level today is impressive, and it's going to be a nice one coming into the end is nigh. Chat is noting that some of the bigger name like Zoff, Melwest, we also are missing on Stifler or Jant. Those are very solid runners, but they are not here today. Maybe they didn't feel practiced enough, maybe they weren't available for this month. It is summer after all. If you have the opportunity to go on vacation, maybe you should do so, but still, for the other that just want to do speedrunning, we're here at the start of the August tournament.
Yeah, that's me indoors on a nice summer day. Happy to be here bringing you guys the Ultime Decathlon August tournament. We can take a look now at sort of the overall structure of things. There are 3 tournaments followed by one sort of last chance tournament that all qualify 2 players to the grand finals. We are we're in the second of these 4 tournaments, and we are narrowing the field down to the top 8. Next week we will narrow it down to top 4, and then the following week we will find which 2 players qualify for the grand finals. But we got some ways to go, and we got 3 games left to play for today. The first of which is going to be the end of nigh. The end is nigh, and we are off at the start of the race.
Yeah. So first of all, the end. Just, you know, a good introduction to jumping and grabbing ledges. That's all there is to that game. You also have the one button to fast fall. If you press it, you will fall faster. And faster is usually a good thing for speedrunning, so you will see the runners use it as much as they can. As soon as you want to grab onto something, you want to fast fall to it to be able to re-jump faster. But it is very technical, and this is one of those games where if you are starting to speedrun it, you might die like 250 times until you get better, die less, and it is then a trade-off. Do you want to die more but do better strats, or do you want to die less and maybe lose a little bit of time due to safety? And it's all decision making and based on your practice, the way you learn the games, and the way you want to actually run the game. Silph Shady and Fireman making good progress. Ghost Death and Kunai a little bit behind. And Silph Shady had a fantastic Cuphead, did not finish a story about Miracle in time, so they definitely want to do, have to do as good as they can on The End Is Nigh.
And they're capable of it too. The Silph Shady is in the top 10 overall, I think. I want to pull this up. 7th overall in the UD. Has a 170 point time of 22 minutes 57 seconds in The End Is Nigh. So if they come out and play the way that they can for these remaining 3 games, then I think even with the 0, in one game out of only 5 to move on to the next phase, I think they can do it. But they're going to have to buckle down and put out of their mind what happened in A Story About My Uncle, and just focus on what's right in front of them. And what's right in front of them is the Arid Flats. It is the second of a couple different sections, and you get a nice change of music and palette, and each area has kind of its own theme going on. I'm not really sure what the Arid Flats really has going on, other than things move. They're tumbleweeds. I don't know.
It's the I'd say the introduction to the secret moving things. You have to touch to move them. We did not have too much of those. The first 3 worlds are just like intros to what will consist of the meat of the game, being like the 6 worlds. So it's going pretty fast. We see like a lot of those new elements, the springs, the moving parts, the enemies you have to dodge. And you can see on every single screen you have that one tumor you can get. It's a collectible. You don't need it in the category we are doing today. But if you want to beat the game in its entirety, those are your lives for the second half of the game. The category today is stopping at the friend. Once you've built your friend back together, so you have someone to talk with, it's done. You just have a cutscene and the category stops there. It's the easier category. It's a good intro to the speedrun of the Endless Night, and it's just a good race overall. It's very nice, and the runners seem to have learned the game quite fast. We see Fireman on the bottom left corner going for that secret area, which is much harder but faster to go through. And yeah, didn't die, which is pretty rare. It's actually pretty brutal. And dies on the right after that on the actual normal level.
That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. It's just a really tricky right-left to get that secret room. Ghost Death is going to go for it now. And he gets it nice. He's looking really good. Again, this is one of the question marks I was talking about, having never seen this player before. Even on the leaderboards, let alone in the tournaments, or just hearing about them in speedrunning in general. So it's been a treat to watch them compete, and they're looking really strong. They're right there with Konine in Overflow, and both of them very close behind Soul Shady and Fireman. This is still really close, actually. This is probably the closest race we've had on.
Yeah, they're all tied almost on the same screen or very close to. It's going to usually it goes like this on the first 3 worlds. It can be very, very close together, and then when we start to get to Exodus, it's usually like the time distorts a little bit, and the difference between the players can get a little bit bigger. I'm just watching the Ghost Death player card, and they're an interesting one because they don't have a time on a story about my uncle. But seeing what we've seen, they clearly know how to speedrun the game. So they probably put a lot of practice, but did not get enough runs going, so they wanted to submit their time, which is totally fine. But it's very hard to tell because they're very good on the 5 games we have today. They didn't have a time on a story about my uncle, but they passed that, so no problem. But they don't have a time either on Shovel Knight, Castlevania, and Trials. So I don't know if it's the same story. They put practice, but did not complete a run yet, or if they don't know the game at all and have to practice 3 new different games on next week. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how well they do next Saturday, if they qualify today. Obviously, they're currently not sure because they're on the 7th place and we qualify on the 8th. So they still have to work toward that.
All the players still keeping it close through the end of Overflow. There is a pretty big difficulty spike coming up. Fireman is going to show it to you now as he heads up in the split. Still Shady chasing him, not too far behind. You can go 3 different directions here, and for the sake of us being able to follow the race, the players are going to be doing what most players typically do. When they speedrun this game, they go for the hardest thing first, so that if it doesn't go well, you get to reset sooner rather than later, which is not so important in a race, but you gotta go the same way for race reasons, so why not make it the way that most people go? And the Wall of Sorrow is probably the hardest of the 3. There's sort of 2 areas for each spoke in the split. There's 3 spokes, 2 areas each, 6 areas. Wall of Sorrow leads to the SS Exodus, and I think the machine probably harder than Exodus, but
I don't know if it's harder, but it definitely killed more runners, I'd say.
Right.
It's a trade-off, but the machine has like all those moving parts and those machine guns that shoot at you, and it's way easier to die. the harder strats, I don't know. I feel like Wall of Sorrow probably has the hardest fast strats, having to jump on those bird's head that we can see on the Fireman screen. Doing a good job with it, dodging the second bird and just making it just fine. He clearly puts a lot of practice in that game. I know Fireman loves doing casual races with the other runners, and that shows. Like, it's just good practice and they're not stopping at all. They need the points also because they are currently in 9th place, 2 points behind Q9, so Q9 doing great job also, but a little bit behind Fireman, so the race is on.
Fireman into one of the last sections with the bird. He gets caught by, I think it might have been spikes, but the bird was what was forcing him to hurry there. Does get clipped by those spikes, and this is a long level. You have to wait for these blocks to go up. Dying at the end of a long level is pretty much the way to lose major time in this game. So he's able to recover and start to move on here from that level, but the damage is done a little bit. Ghost Death moving into the first major section where you have the chance to ride a bird upwards rather than do the platforms, and he was not comfortable with that strategy, so he is just dancing with them. He does end up taking a death. He's actually throwing in some jumps to bait them to go to different directions, so he is definitely prepared to take this route. He's not kind of just winging it, to use one choice of words. But he is he has a route, basically. He has some strats, and it didn't quite work out for him there. So these birds are really giving it to him. He's dropped back quite a bit, and this is what you were talking about. That once things get hard in this game is where you'll start to see the better players start to pull away. And it's looking like Silk Shady has passed Fireman, though they are still quite close heading into the Exodus.
Yeah, they passed him on that one level where Fireman died a couple of times. Exodus, clearly reminiscent of those Mario Brothers 3 ships with the cannons and the moving parts. It's a tough one. It has longer levels, and you have to know exactly how to pass them. You have some crazy fast strats you can go for. Usually the runners won't and just are trying to go for safety, because it's so easy to die, actually, especially on that level where Silk Shady is, bottom right corner. You have to get precise and you cannot rush it. That's pretty much the theme in Exodus. You have to know when you can go and when you have to wait, and it can get tricky sometimes.
Silk Shady doing a good job of waiting and going the way he needs to. Fireman as well, playing it pretty safe on this really long section. Anytime you have a long level, you'll probably see players taking it pretty safe. Those are the most dangerous ones when you don't have your quick reset if something goes wrong. Fireman barely making it across that gap off of that block, and Silk Shady going to be waiting on the left side of the block to avoid getting squished. You can do some pretty aggressive stuff hanging off the right side and going for like a transfer onto the other block, but he's not going to be messing around with any of that. Ghost Death, finally, after having some trouble with Wall of Sorrow, is on the final elevator, and Q9 does manage to get the jump off of the cannonballs in the first section. That's kind of like your first like kick in the pants from this section that says like, now this is what we expect you to do now in this level. Silk Shady dying twice here to these guns and is now tied up with Fireman.
Yeah, Fireman passed them. They were very close together, but I kept my eye on Ghost Death because they took like a lot of deaths entering Exodus, and that doesn't bode well, because doing great on the first 3 worlds is a thing. Keeping it going on the next 6 is pretty hard, and usually the runners do tend to grind a little bit too much and practice not enough, and that shows especially in the Andy's Night, because you will get very good and very solid and consistent at the first 3 worlds quite quickly. They are easy, you do them a lot, and then it can get trickier, and I don't know, I'm scared they have to finish quickly and they have to stay in the within the time the other runners are getting, because if Fireman just beat them by like 2 minutes, it's all their lead gone, and Ghost Death will fall back to the 9th or 10th place, and that could be very scary.
Fireman and Soul Shady both done with the SS Exodus. Ghost Death had a pretty bad fall on this level near the end, but he's through it now. And Konine playing it pretty safe, or maybe he just didn't realize he was going to grab that ledge and had a moment of confusion of where am I, why aren't I moving? But he is now moving just fine, as Fireman and Soul Shady are just past now. One of the trickier levels, I think, to optimize of Retrograde, where you are tapping the fast fall button to make sure that you are jumping as soon as you can, keeping your movement upwards before those platforms come in to squish you from the side. I was surprised when I started to learn that myself, just how quick, how tight the timing was on those fast falls to make sure that you can get through there in one cycle, but Fireman Soul Shady making it look pretty easy.
Yeah, they're making very good progress. Fireman just barely one screen ahead. Those crumbling blocks clearly omnipresent in Retrograde here. The fast-paced music and all those elements are getting usually on my nerves when I play through Retrograde. Like it's clearly moving way too fast. You have to know exactly what you're doing, and the screen transitions can get tricky in the end design. You have to remember exactly what you're doing, but clearly it's not a problem for Fireman. Took a couple of deaths on that crumbling block level. Self Shady taking an interesting route on that one, making good progress. Fireman dying, but Self Shady dies also. Kunine might get ahead of them if they keep on dying, but they still have about 10 levels of lead. It's Fireman dodging those moving things. Clearly the most horrifying thing in a game ever. The noise they make and the way they move is quite unpredictable.
I don't like it. I really, really don't like it, and it's enough to actually be off-putting to throw you off of your inputs a little bit. For me anyway. I bet once you start really speedrunning this game, then that doesn't really affect you anymore. I don't think anyone could ever get so comfortable with the game that the bright colors of Golgotha don't ever make it hard to focus on what you need to do in this game, but the players are probably pretty solid at this stuff by now. Still Shady doing a good job of baiting whatever this goop is off to one side and then making a run for the exit. Fireman is through. Ghost Death almost done with Exodus here, is waiting for his cue and got the tumor, but
that one
would rather have the cannonball.
It's pretty
nice
hard
strat there from Konine.
Okay, nice for Ghost Death. Fireman and Self Shady getting into the machine. They both took like some interesting deaths, and Self Shady went for some slow strat where Fireman reset and looping to get the faster strat. And Fireman dying at the end of that screen gives Self Shady the lead. Self Shady definitely needs it because they didn't finish A Story About My Uncle. So once again, they have about 100 points to make up for, and it can be tricky. So any point count, any points matter. They have a good lead on Ghost Death. They need that, and we'll see how well that goes. We still have 2 games after that, Spectrable and DKC. I'm super scared for Spectrable because it never went even like close to okay for any runner in a race. So we'll see how well that goes.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we saw it, it was okay. And then the second time, I guess it was the third time we saw it, was one of the July tournament matches, the first round of the July tournament, where it was featured when it just, a lot of players just kind of self-destructed on a couple different places. And we saw some huge disparities between personal best and posted race times. So that trend largely continued. It was never quite that bad after that point, but I think a lot of players gained a certain amount of respect/fear for Spectraball. So players are going to be a little worried about it
I would have said frustration with the game, to be honest, because the game can appear a bit unfair. It's a weird physics-based ball game, so sometimes you will get some unexpected bounces and stuff. But you can manage them, so you have to practice them for race setting. That's what Brothermain did, and they got like the best race time, but it still was about like 30 points behind the best times we expect from PBs. So we'll see how well it goes. Obviously, I hope Silk Shadies know that they can make some times there, but don't have to get too focused on that either. You want to play just your best and see how well that goes. But so far, they're keeping the lead on Fireman. It's very close between those two, but they took advantage of a single dash and dies there, and so Fireman takes the lead back.
This is probably one of the worst levels to die on. There's a couple levels in the machine where you are traversing one way back and forth and then getting a thing and then going all the way back. So it's kind of doubling the length of the level, and those are the worst levels to die on. So this is, not a big gap between the players, but one of the biggest gaps we've seen in the past 10 minutes or so between these two players, Konine and Ghost Death, also in the machine. Ghost Death struggled a lot with the Wall of Sorrow and the Exodus, but had a pretty good retrograde and is here in the machine. This is where I think I would expect to see more time lost, like the Wall of Sorrow and Exodus. This is a really tough level with a lot of very quick cycles where your practice only counts for so much. If you're just a little bit off, you're going to be in a different cycle. These bullets are going to be in a slightly different position. So there's a lot of, I think, playing by feel, making tiny little adjustments here and there in this level, and those are the kind of things that don't come easily. So if you haven't put in as much time in the end of night, this is where it will really start to show. But he's looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, they obviously died a lot, because that's a game where you just will die a lot, but they're making good way. You can, those weird anti-gravity wells, you can keep your momentum going if you enter them fast enough. And Fireman beating the machine right in front of Still Shady. Ghost Death on 4th place. Kunine making good progress also, but still has a couple of long levels to go through. And Fireman will start the Hollows. Probably one of the easiest world of the final ones. You just have to remember exactly how to solve the levels. You cannot see much, and you have to know exactly how to interact with the levels. Getting some good bounces there, not too easy, and you have to remember to be patient on that one, because it can get trickier.
Alright, Soul Shady going to be moving on. Ghost Death is still on this level in the machine. He had a really, really good first try at it, and then died right on these final sets of spikes. It was kind of heartbreaking for me. He really had a chance, and still does, to keep pace with these other runners in this really tough game. And in that level alone has really hurt his chances of staying in the top 8. He's going to have to fight like crazy from here on out in order to stay there. Konine is basically just weaving in and out of these bullets very carefully, but has reached the end of the machine, has picked up the body of the friend. I think it is one of 3 parts to
It's the heart at the end of the machine. Just have that, the soul, I don't know exactly, you just have that bright white ball waiting for you, because you need a head, body and a heart to make a friend. So if you miss one of those 3 parts for you to have a friend to hang with, you just know where to go now, given that you survived to the trials, because it's not that easy. The end is nice, a nice take on the Super Meat Boy kind of platforming elements. The fact that you don't have a running button is a cool twist, because that means the level design is made for just precise jumping and not like so much for combining all your movement possible. In leaderboard you have like the running jump, the wall running jump, the wall jump without running, different like abilities. Here it's just like pure precision and memorization, and the levels go very very fast. Like there's no map transition or anything, so you have to be like spot on memory wise.
The screen transitions actually play a pretty big factor. If you die, you get reset to a certain point, but that's not quite the same as where you'll be if you come into the screen having finished the previous screen. So there are certain levels where that can really change things. There are certain places where if a player dies, they'll actually back up and go to the previous screen just so they can start the level the way that they're used to on a regular run. Or maybe it's actually what they're not used to, because they're used to practicing that one level over and over, and so they'll die or reset and try it again, and they're used to practicing it from the reset and not used to practicing it in one smooth run. So there can be a disparity there that can trip players up a little bit, and it's definitely rough not being able to see exactly what the next level is going to be and kind of registering the part of your brain that sees it and goes, oh yeah, this part, I know how to do this part. That part needs to be working pretty quickly, because sometimes you need to be jumping very quickly at the start of a level as soon as it loads in. So there's a really fast-paced, basically, is what I'm getting to. They got the really tough level here in Golgotha.
Hardest
Fireman is... yeah, doing some safer strats here. Silv Shady's going for the tough stuff, and he did the hardest jump, but it didn't quite have the follow-up.
Between Silv Shady and Fireman, they both like were very close together, and it just showed that you should not go for harder strats. Like clearly, the one who always went for the easier ones made it like first place. So taking a risk in the end is clearly worth it when you are aiming for sub 20. If not, like not so much. We saw when we took a peek at the 8 players we are currently streaming, and Q Shadow, being like in 3rd place overall after Story About My Uncle and Cuphead, was in the lead for the Andes 9 and looking very very good to get back to 1st place. Q Shadow is a fantastic runner. He's been with us since UD2, and like that means he knows how to run about 50 games now, and at a very very high level. So Fireman is going to pick up the body right before Silv Shady and just put it back together, and the run is done.
Although if we look at the timers they're running, I'm not sure if there's any difference in load times per se, but or stream delay or whatnot. But we'll see when these times come in what times they've actually posted.
Yeah.
Because we might see that it was not Fireman who came in the lead, just basing off of what I'm seeing on screen.
We go with in-game time for the Andes 9, the tiny loads between each screens, but we have like 250 of those make a difference. So yeah, actually Silv Shady got a 30-second lead to Fireman.
Oh, or maybe it's Fireman is running a real-time timer and Silv Shady is an in-game timer. Not sure. Again, we'll take a look at the leaderboards afterwards and see how things really shook out. It was very close between these two runners the whole way. They gave us a great race. Konine into the hardest level of Golgotha. There's the spikes and this chain chomp, basically. It's the entire level is just the spikes on that platform and the chain chomp guarding both the ledge that you want to hide out on, and then also the ledge that you have to touch to get to the end. So very deviously placed chain chomp type enemy there, but he had no problems with that level or any of the levels afterward. Is looking very good. We got Capriquick on stream, who is right there with Konine, so we're going to get a pretty interesting finish here between these two players.
Yeah, Capriquick, they were in 1st place after the first 2 games. Took them some time to beat the Andes 9, but not too much. The finish is very close. Konine dies, Capriquick makes it, and they will end up 1st place between those two. Very nice. We are going to see Penguin 23 on screen, as Ghostess still has some way to go, and only like 2.5 minutes left to beat the game. 30 minutes is quite tight to beat the Undisnai, but they can make it, I think.
It's going to be close, but you're right. It is definitely possible. We've seen Ghost Death play really well for certain things, and then just like one death, and it's, you know, you lose the time from the death, but it also triggers your play to be thrown off for a little bit, and we see a couple deaths all in a row, and it stacks up. So if he can avoid that situation, that sort of that quicksand effect, then I think he's going to be okay, but he cannot afford to have any of that.
Yeah, they definitely need to finish as fast as possible. They need the 100 points at least that would reward them. They know how to beat the game fast, just didn't went exactly well. That's also why in the UD we have you know, multiple opportunities to qualify. If you're not ready in July, you still have multiple chances. If you're not ready now, you still have the September tournament, and then we set up the last chance tournament where everybody is going to do the 10 games in a row and just see if they can qualify. Maybe Melwest is going to wait for that final chance tournament, last chance tournament, to come back at it. They're currently just grinding games to see how far they can push their time. And grinding and racing at high level can be like two opposite things for some runners. So especially when it's 10 games in a row. When it's a single one, it's pretty much the same thing. But being ready at racing in a no reset setting, 10 games can be, yeah, it's a huge toll. It's a big ask.
Yeah, and when you're talking about just one game, the pattern, just kind of the way it goes, is that generally the person with the better PB is the favorite, kind of by a lot. It's I don't know if it's just how consistent speedrunning tends to be, just something about it that the better PB tends to be the decider. But in a format like this with so many different games, that tends to not be true. Your ability to be consistent becomes more important, and it's shown in more than a couple different cases. So Ghost Death, I'm pretty sure, finishes just under the bar. Time's up, but I saw that friend up there on the screen, so the really close finish. We'll take a look at the times as they come in and get them up on the leaderboard, see how the players that we had on stream actually did, and see how the players who weren't on stream did. There's definitely some question marks up there, and you know, you want to see everyone do their best. And if things continue the way that they were for our top 5-6, then I fully expect them to see them remain there. But I don't know. There's so many question marks. It looks like pretty much the same up top.
Skunkov actually manages to finally climb on top 2. Cute Shadow gets first spot. He was second place, I think, before the Undisnai. And Kerpwick with a PB on the Undisnai falls to the third place. But look at the score, like 498, 496, 495. It's going to be complicated to stay on the first place here. But what matters the most is being top 8. And Ghost Death, with the 104 points, barely sub 30, is now in 9th place. Sylph Shady and Tane the 10th place. You know, they had a good run, 150 points on the Undisney, but still have some time to make about 60 to 70 points to get on that top 8 spot. Ryuka, no time on the Undisney, falls right behind Soul Shady, which is good, you know, comparing two runners with only 2 games being so close to each other. And yeah, you really want to be to have a time on all 5 games, I feel, to be top 8 today.
Man, Ghost Death is in a precarious position, is 20 points outside of the top 8, so you're obviously trying to score points over Ko9 and LF and Fireman. They're close enough that, things go well for you, things don't go so well for them. We can see that change. But in addition to his battle with them, he has two fantastic players in Silv Shady and Ryuka, who are not that far behind. With 2 games left to play, a 50-point gap is a lot. It is a lot. But these are 2 extremely strong players who have only found themselves in this position because of the zeros in 2 different games. So they are capable of playing at that really high level, the level that can score 20, 25 points higher than you on these games. And if they were to produce those times in the remaining 2 games, that gap closes and things get nuts for this final top 8. So this is shaping up to be pretty crazy. I have no idea how this is going to play out, and I can't wait, but it looks like I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, and the runners are asking for a short break, so we are going to take 10 minutes. We don't have the stay hydrated bot in chat, but I know we've been live for 2 hours, so you should, get a cup of water, get hydrated, get your blood running, because right after the break, a Spectrable is coming your way. This is the weird ball game that's throwing so many players off. And then we're going to end with DKC. DKC is a tough one, probably one of the hardest games we ever put on any beauty list. It's up there with Shovel Knight, with Metroid Zero Mission, with Mega Man X that we had like previous seasons. And we'll see how well the runners do. I know some runners love the game and put a ton of work into it. I know Ryuka practiced the game a lot. I know Fireman knows how to get sub 40. I don't know where Ghost or Silv Shady are at, but we'll wait until then. So see you in 10 minutes, and get ready to support your favorite players. They need to be top 8 to qualify for next week. Hey, we are back after a short and deserved break because those runners are so close to each other. They needed like to get ready for Spectrable and Donkey Kong Country coming your way. Medical, you took a peek at the PDs for the runners for those two upcoming games, and it's going to be tense.
Yeah, everyone remaining has, well, not everyone, most players remaining have pretty good times in both games, but there are some players who, in particular, I'm thinking of LF and Coat9, who either don't have or don't have great PBs posted for either DKC or Spectre Ball, our two remaining games. So this could be trouble, basically. They need to stay strong. There are, Silv Shady and Ryuka are two, they're contending for top 10, top 20 overall leaderboards on the UD. Incredibly strong players. They've got the big leads in points because, they just kind of got on one game or the other between the two. But they're coming and they have the ability to post great times on both of these games. But they also have to be worried about Ghost Death. Ghost Death actually, didn't actually have times posted on the leaderboard for certain games, but then came and did fantastic pretty much at them, compared to having no time at all. Being able to get over the 100-point mark in a race is a great achievement. But he does have times for Spectre Ball and DKC, and they are great, honestly. Spectre Ball, he's got a 209, and of the players competing in this tournament, he actually has the best Donkey Kong Country time on the leaderboard. His 38.57 is worth 173 points.
That's
it's huge. 7th best in the UD period, full stop. So going into the top 8 the way he is, just outside right now, honestly, I don't even think he's an underdog in this situation. I think he's actually well positioned to take one of these top 8 spots.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. We'll see how will that go for them. Clearly, he's a surprise for today. Maybe he's going to be like the big underdog, like Skunkoff was last month. Skunkoff, Cute Shadow, Couple Quick, Zamask doing great. Sablier, they got barely into the semifinals last month during July, but did not get the results they wanted. So they clearly got better at the 5 games we're seeing today. We'll see how that goes for Spectrable. I'm super scared because Spectrable clearly PBs do not mean anything. I really hope those players practiced on some safer strats, like all during the UD. A lot of players are saying, wow, I'm surprised that guy gets super good times with so much safer strat than I do. And on every single game, the players need clearly to practice on some safe strats, and especially on Spectrable. So we'll see how well that goes. I've seen Ghost put a lot of practice on that game. He's streaming super late Europe time, so quite nicely for EDT, and he's put a ton of practice, so I do hope that goes well for them. Obviously, LF, Fireman, Kunin, Sablier will have to work their way to stay up there because Ryuka, Silv Shady, Ghostless are not going to miss the opportunity to pass them. So everyone is getting ready at the start of Spectrable, getting ready to enter the Tropical Isle, and this is one of those weird ball game where you can jump and double jump. You are totally in control of your ball. It's not like Super Monkey Ball where you have a lot of momentum. Here you can just stop yourself very, very fast. And it's all about understanding the physics of the game, the level design, and being able to get like nice jumps to just make your way as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's well, that and not getting a weird bounce off of some piece of geometry that behaves most of the time, but not all the time. So far, this first bounce off of this waterfall section has gone well for all the players. Ghost Death, Coat9 both getting theirs. Fireman getting his well out in advance. Silv Shady having some stream troubles, but is getting there. Maybe I'm looking at the waterfall. We'll see how it goes in just a bit. Looks like it went okay. Ghost Death is waiting for this platform a little bit. You can get aggressive and jump over that gap if you wish, but like you said, the safe strats could definitely be the way to go in this game, and it's not just like a yes or no on or off binary proposition whether you play safe or risky. It's constantly making decisions. There's a full spectrum basically, and deciding where you're going to land on it at any given moment for any given jump or trick is up to the individual player. And it will be interesting to see what routes they take. The first level, there's really not... Oh, barely Ghost Death getting onto the final platform. We'll see how it goes. Konine managing to get that double jump in. And the exit will catch you and very nicely carry you on to the next level. So very well done.
Sablier in first place here, climbing his way onto that pyramid. You know, you have like those weird jumps and weird bounces, and you do want to abuse that to climb not the intended way here, making it look easy. Fireman does the same thing. Ghost Death, you know, you have to manage your momentum, and when you get those boosts and those flames coming out of your ball, that means that you actually go way faster than you should to be in total control, so using the walls to stop them was pretty cool. And we get to the third level, the lava level here, but open your eyes because it's almost done already. There's that weird boost here. You can take it just not touching the ground and nothing slows you down, so you just go directly to the end of the level. Very nicely done, not using the checkpoint here for Sablier, going for the very aggressive strat, and that works for them, which is very nice.
And with this, Sablier is going to be the first one to jump out to the snowy peaks. This was the level that really got a lot of players in some of our past races of this game. There's a couple different spots, but there's one in particular, this one he's on now, where it is a really long stretch before you get a checkpoint, and it looks like he's hit that wooden board, which is the first major sticking point.
Oh, no.
And with a death there, how far back does he go? Yeah, that's...
Back to start.
All the way back to the start.
That's what got like so many runners during the July tournament. I remember specifically Mel West getting stuck here. Like it is, I don't know, snowy peaks. You don't have so many checkpoints. You have to obviously die just before the checkpoints all the time, and it is a long one. There's no skip for that particular squared section here. You have to go all the way around to just be able to climb up. And Fireman making good progress here, using his double jump nicely, and not having too many troubles. We'll see what they do on that final part of the level. They're doing like the new skip, going all the way left. And missing it, going all the way back. Oh,
at least it's not the start of the level, but that is a major setback. It is very close. Sablier as well, having to reset from the checkpoint. It is very close between Fireman, Ghost Death, and Sablier.
Yeah, everybody is taking like a death. This Ghost Death does another time. Also, Fireman, so Sablier is in the lead, but does not get the bounce they were looking for, so everybody's dying, and Kunine actually takes the lead here, going all the way around through the normal pass, and that is going to be the correct way to go, apparently, because they are going to end right at the same time with Fireman. Very nice think, and Sablier making his way with the safer strat as well. That's the pass Devil Tifa chose to go, and as well Brother Main during the July tournament, and apparently it's very important to be safe at the end of the snowy peaks.
Ghost Death and Sablier both moving on now into the Sky Ruins. They're a little bit behind, not too far behind, but it doesn't take much to lose a lot of points in this game. Fireman going a little too far on this really tricky section with these fans. There's a really aggressive strat that you can do where you kind of go underneath the level and use some fans to boost you up, but it is quite risky, so haven't seen anyone go for... I think maybe I missed Ghost Death.
Ghost Death just went for that as you were explaining it. So, and they nailed it. They took their time to set it up, but it was worth it not to go all the way around. Very nicely done. They passed Kunine on the occasion, and now it's Fireman that's in the lead, but Ghostdeath is very close behind. Sablier 4th place. Sablier is currently in 5th place in the tournament, so they have some points to compensate that, but still they need to go as fast as possible because Donkey Kong is not going to do anyone any favor, so they need to go as fast as possible. Ghostdeath is almost done, but it looks like Fireman is going to end up 1st place here. Nicely done, aiming for that final spot. It looks so easy when you see experienced runners nail that final hole, but it is actually way harder than it looks, and when you start learning the game you will miss that spot like 90% of the time.
It's not quite as bad as the very end of the game in Space Construct, but it's up there, and it's definitely something the players are going to be worried about. Other things where it can be hard to see just how a better player is saving time. There's lots of places, little places, all over the place in a level like the Towering Mountain here that the guys are on. This is, like you can see Ghostdeath getting hung up on these slanted platforms just a little bit. You can take those just a little cleaner, and if you preserve your speed coming out of there, the time save adds up in a way that you can be really surprised at just how many seconds can come off of a time like this, like we saw, the world record just obliterated by, obviously finding all kinds of new strats and things with these different players, but just better understanding of how to find these seconds here and there is part of the reason why the Spectre Ball record is as low as it is right now. All the players doing pretty well. Sablier in 4th, getting that big jump over to the moving boxes. I think it might be Ghostdeath's in 3rd, Conine 2nd, Fireman 1st.
Ghostdeath is in the lead, actually.
He did.
He's pretty far ahead now.
Fireman's kind of struggling with this jump here.
They're both using the older routes, which is safer, so it's good, because I've said multiple times during this tournament that they should go safe the route rather than riskier route. But they're using a lot of their time to go safe, and here I don't know if it's just because the new rounds are harder to learn, and now Fireman actually going the other way around, so they are going to have a faster route if they make those climb, and as you stated, you can take those very clean, but it can get tricky, so we'll see how well that goes for them.
Going fairly well. Ghostdeath is coming up on the end of the level pretty soon.
Yeah, they're almost done. Just final couple of jumps here. They have to be careful and to actually land on the final spot, but apparently it's going to be just fine. And yeah, they're going to enter the Space Construct in 1st place. The music for that level is fantastic, so I hope we got to hear it in the stream. And there are lots of very precise skip at the start of the level, but what matters the most is the loop at the end. They will want to get a huge skip, skipping the entire tower that consists of the majority of the level, but it is not easy at all.
Ghostdeath doing some really aggressive stuff on Space Construct, and mostly pulled it off. Had to save it at the end, but he did. No. And the tractor beam just getting him. It's like a reverse tractor beam, I guess, a retractor beam. Wait, wouldn't a retractor beam also be pulling you? It's a detractor beam?
I don't know.
I'll get back to you on that one. I'll hit up dictionary.com, figure out the definition of tracked and the difference between tracked and retract. Very important stuff. Not as important as the fact that Ghostdeath has already reached the loop on Space Construct. Conine getting into the exit here, and loop no good on this attempt. This is pretty common, even for really good players, to have to retry this loop a couple times.
Yeah, it is. I know Melwest and Brother Main are trying to get 7-10 or sub-7 even on that run, but every run, half of the run are killed here. Ghostdeath actually having a too big of a jump, and is not looking too good. Okay, I was scared they got like an unfortunate checkpoint on the bottom of the tower and had to do it all over again. Looks like they're just fine. It's better to restart and do what you know rather than to build up like a new strat or a new route on the go. But everybody is going to catch up with them now. Sablier is almost there. Q9 is there, failing here, but it's okay. On the same elevator as Ghostess. And Q9 definitely needs it because they're on 8th place and their PB is on TKC is actually way behind Ghostess PB. So.
Oh, that looked so good. I thought we were going to get a first try from Q9, but overshot it just a little bit. Ghost Death is giving us one heck of a camera angle here, but...
Yep, I don't know what's happening, but they are going the wrong way now. Just trying to get some momentum, going to finally make it and fall, and having to restart all over again. They didn't touch the checkpoint. That was so risky, and Q9 is actually going to end up first, apparently here. Sablier very close to them. Ghost Death nailing the skip here. Sablier aiming for that final platform.
Where is it? It's impossible to tell. It's tilted at like a 40-degree angle, weirdly rotating in space, able to guide that ball in. Sablier is going to be the first one to finish of our players on stream. And Q9 is setting up for second. Ghost Death, who got here first, is still a little bit of ways, but this time he has the checkpoint on the tower. Q9 finishes in second. Ghost Death finding this. Wow, who's gonna make? I guess Ghost Death is gonna beat Fireman here, but it's not gonna be by much. If he gets in the exit, all right, off the backboard and then.
I love those leaderboards at the end because you can see all the players from the UD actually in the leaderboard. You see Bermundo, Ultifa, Manta, Axodo, Ghost Death, Mel West. Like it's always the same names that come up. Spectrable is a very niche game. It's a couple of bucks on Steam. You can get it, and it's not that many players tackled the speedrun. So congrats to all the runners. We'll see how well they did. Clearly they were far away behind the world record. The old world record was 10 minutes, which is the 200 points mark, and it goes 3 seconds per point. So when it's like they're maybe at 160, 140, we'll see. But we have the opportunity to see Penguin for the first time running through Spectrable, being at the towering mountain here.
He's going to have to hustle if he wants to finish and get on the board. He did get on the board for one game, I think, so far, but has definitely come out to compete here to just pick up the experience of having competed and in a major event, right? It makes a difference. There's a difference between going for a PB and racing, and then there's also a difference between racing and racing in a competition like this, where it counts for something. Counts for something pretty big, honestly. The UD is a pretty big, special, crazy thing. So even if you're sure, like, I'm not ready for most of these games, I would recommend. Yeah, there's no good. He's gonna try to almost.
They will choose to restart from checkpoint, which is not too far away, but still have to make their way to here, and it's going to be tough. Yeah, you can see that frustration, obviously, having to wait for the TNT crate to pop back up. There we go, very nice animation there.
I wonder if restarting from the checkpoint is better. Does that respawn the box?
Yeah.
I think it does, yeah. So that might have been the better option there.
Hard to think of on the fly about that.
Yeah.
Like it's the kind of thing that really sometimes you just get caught up just having missed the trick, and restarting like that shows usually if a runners know how to do that, it just shows experience. But yeah, time's up. 15 minutes for Spectrable is usually not too bad, but it's still a big ask for some runners, and the game really can go crazy sometimes. So we've seen a lot of deaths on the snowy peaks, but still they pulled it off okay. Fireman in chat asking if he was safe. We'll see.
No one is safe.
No one is safe in Spectrable. There is no way you can. No one is going to save you. But let's see the results.
All right, fantastic runs. I wish we got to see the 10:06 and 10:08 from Cute Shadow and Skunkoff, who are kind of pulling away and establishing dominance here at the top of the leaderboard. Caprique the Mask and Sablier are kind of making up the solid core with Cute Shadow and Skunkoff at the top 5 positions. And then we get into kind of the danger zone. LF, Fireman, Konine, Ghost Death, Ryuka, Silshady, and even Zigwigwi kind of nipping at their heels a little bit. This is, there's like a 600 to 500, so yeah, less than 100-point difference between 6th and 10th. And that's a lot in one game, but that one game is Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
So, it's possible. This is a game that no one's been able to get to the 200-point mark. It's an incredibly dense game with a huge history of speedrunning. It was, like you said, one of the biggest games that's ever been in the UD. And so the players who've really put in the time can make a big charge over the players who haven't, because it really shows in this game. And Ghost Death is one of those players. So despite being just outside the top 8 by about 20 points, has about that much advantage in terms of PB over some of these other players who are just keeping him out.
So best runners PB-wise on that leaderboard for DKC are Ghost Death with 38.57 versatile time. Then you have Fireman, Sylph Shady, Ryuka, Sablier, Skunkoff doing great. Cute Shadow is at 43.51, which is good, but it has to be about that time to stay there. Then The Mask is at 47 minutes. Penguin is actually at 49 minutes, so they're doing great also. And then you have some runners that don't have that sub 50 time that you need to get your 100 points. So we actually will see, but maybe DKC is the big decider for today. Which would not be surprising, as you can see, the game goes completely crazy. The category is beat all stages. You can use whatever glitch you want, whatever the way. What's important is that you see the fanfare for at the end of every single level. So it is a big game. It is huge. It is long. It is very scary. You don't have that many HP. The game over, although it never happened really, can be a scary thought, because if you were to game over, you would start all over again, and you have only 5 lives to work with at the start. Good thing is, the boss fights are not too scary. If you think about Shovel Knight, for example, where the boss fights are super demanding. It's not the case here, so you just have to focus on your glitch execution and on your platforming.
And don't get hit by anything, because you want to be Diddy and not Donkey. Diddy's faster. I think he jumps a little higher. There's a lot of little differences, but Diddy's faster, so you want to be Diddy. And if you get hit, you lose him. If you have Donkey, then you don't die. You get to play as Donkey, but then you're not used to playing as Donkey. There are certain things that he can't do that Diddy does. And just having your sprite be totally different, and the hitboxes are now different, and it doesn't quite work the way that you're used to, it really throws you off. So you are at a really big handicap whenever you lose Diddy in this game, and that happens whenever you get hit. So even if you don't die from whatever hit you, didn't knock you into a pit or whatever, then you're stuck with Donkey. And so you're looking desperately for those DK barrels. Sometimes they're pretty far away, and in that sense, it's a pretty punishing game. So we'll see how that goes. We haven't seen the ultimate punishment, like you said, the game over. Yep. Players could opt for a safety save here and there if they saw they were getting low on lives or something, and it was something they were worried about. But it can be a punishing game. So that's where you can get big swings in terms of time gained and time lost. It hasn't been as much of a swing as, say, Spectre Ball has been in practice. In theory, I think it absolutely could be, but in practice, in the past matches we've had of Donkey Kong Country, it's generally, kind of held true for the order that players do in their PBs has generally been how they do in the races. So, in that sense, I think Ghost Death has a really good shot at getting into one of these top 2 positions.
I'm scared because Kunine doesn't have a PB on the leaderboard. LF doesn't have a PB on the leaderboard. Ghost
What does it even mean?
Have a good time. Kunine is getting ready, and that means they will be running. Maybe they are just barely under 100 points and just need that tiny PB to get there. Maybe they're just keeping that PB, unsubmitted to surprise everybody. Fireman directly losing Donkey Kong and getting some extra lives because they apparently need it. And I totally understand the choice. I've never seen a runner go for that, but you can go super fast on the first level. But obviously, if you want to waste time, it's better to do it on first level, which is so fast anyway, rather than losing lives and dying potentially later on.
So Fireman looking really good through level 1. Ghost Death getting hung up a little bit. Ryuka and Konine both also not going for all of the roles that you can in the extendo rolls. It's a big major facet of speedrunning this game, is that rolling through enemies gives you a huge speed boost. I mean, rolling in itself is faster than walking, so you want to be doing it. But once you hit an enemy, you get this big jump in speed, and you can hit multiple enemies, up to 4, I think, that will increase your speed by a big amount. You get going at kind of double, triple speeds eventually. It's pretty crazy. And in addition to that, you can be releasing and repressing Y during a roll to kind of initiate a new roll, mid-roll, and extend the roll, and they call it an extendo, and you can extendo chain multiple times, and it can be pretty precise, especially once you're moving at really fast speeds like you do when you are getting those multiple enemy rolls. So there are a lot of cases where it's almost too fast, or it's too complicated to make sure that you connect with multiple enemies. So the players will be doing other safer strats. In particular, there's a very safe strat where you jump over the entire level. So we'll see some super jumps. In some cases, they are the fastest way because you're just skipping something where you have to wait. But in a lot of cases, the players are doing it just simply because it is so much safer to jump over everything.
Yeah, totally. It's very close between Fireman and Ghost Death. The difference being that Fireman has DK following him. That means they have that one extra life, one extra chance if they have any accident whatsoever. But for now, they will get through that first wild level, getting Angard there. Or friend companion, just being able to bug through everything, and you can catch him back if you were to lose him like Fireman just did. Fireman playing very safe, but that's actually nice because they are in good spot. If they are 6th position in the leaderboard, if they beat the game in time, they're just going to do just great, no problem. We can see Silv Shady on the top right corner. Silv Shady currently in 11th place. It's looking grim, to be honest. It's going to be very tough, but since they have a good DKC PB, they can hope for multiple runners falling behind, not beating the game in sub 50 minutes. But still, it's a big ask, and they have to do fantastic. So good luck to them.
Barrel Canyon is going swimmingly for all the players. There's really not too much going on because you get in the barrel and then it just kind of starts shooting you across most of the stage. You do need to crumbling jump up to the barrel, and the players are doing a good job of that. Ghost Death and Fireman still pretty much in sync with each other, as Yuka is also in this level, not too far behind, and they're moving on to the first boss. Like you said, bosses in this game, really not too big a concern. This is naughty, and you literally just jump on his head a couple times. It's a nice boss. Gives you a big banana, which you're a fan of because obviously you're a monkey. So it's all about
getting back those. So 6 worlds, 6 bosses, a big set of levels with different environments. So it's not like those Mario games where you have like one environment per world. Here you just can see those biomes here and there. They all have a theme, and for that level the theme is that you can fall to your death pretty much everywhere, so you have to be extra careful. It's super risky to do any extended rolls because going too fast is a real concern in DKC, but it went well for Ghostess and Fireman. They will get to Minecart Carnage, which is not too long because you have that secret exit right at the start. Do remember to dodge that final Kremlin and you're done. No! Oh, as I was saying
Just dodge the final Kremlin and you're done. Okay,
Fireman,
so
please.
He lived, good, but he lost Diddy. So now he's stuck with Donkey. He's going to be looking for a DK barrel in this level, and until then, he's going to be playing with the very unfamiliar, much slower, big,
heavier.
Dumb idiot Donkey Kong.
Yeah, he's not good. Like, to be honest, in the newer one, like DKC Returns and Tropical Freeze, it's not too bad, but you have no idea in Donkey Kong Country, if you've never played the game, how bad the Donkey Kong is. Like, he's super slow, it doesn't feel right anywhere, pretty much. And Fireman taking the time to get his checkpoints, which is smart, I'd say, because it's so easy to die in any level. They will probably take their time here. You can go in one cycle, but it's kind of scary, so yeah, just going slow, trying not to die, which is good.
Silk Shady is pretty far back here in Barrel Canyon. It's looking pretty grim, like you said, but we'll keep an eye on him and see if the miracle happens. For now, Ghost Death is done with, I think that was Stop and Go Station.
Yeah.
One of the 2 levels that just gets basically totally skipped due to a nice little shortcut, and is going to be showing off our first major glitch.
Yeah, this is an important one, Millstone Mayhem. You'll see him lose intentionally DK, then getting him back, losing DD, and then jumping onto an enemy with DK, and they got an infinite jump into Hidden Barrel, and that led them right into the exit, which is pretty nice. So that trick, you're going to see more of it. It's very important for some levels, and it's actually slower but so much safer on some others that we are going to see a lot of those. Fireman got a weird secret exit there. I wonder if he's going to be able to get that trick, losing DK here, but did not lose it on the slope, which is not good. You saw on the animation, on the death animation, when you lose DK, he has to get that weird jump out of the level. So Fireman is going to go back to the previous level to get back DK. This is not good. This is a big time loss for Fireman. They have to get back on their feet after that. Their PB on DKC is 41 minutes. They're actually very solid, the game, so they should be fine.
Alright, so there goes Donkey Kong jumping way off the screen. You're basically preserving that weird upwards jump speed. And he missed the barrel on the way up, but I guess he found it on the way down. That is very hard to do. Once you are up there, it is very unclear where you are, and even honestly where the barrel is. So most players aim to get it on the way up and not on the way down, and it's almost luck if you get it on the way down. But Fireman found it, so very impressive recovery here after a really bad situation. This could have, really been a lot of trouble for a player in a race of Donkey Kong Country, but Fireman's got a really strong time. He's got the experience, so he knew, all right, I lost Donkey. I need him. I can't just get him in the DK barrel because I need the DK barrel for part of the trick, so I need to leave the level, go back. It took a while. He's certainly well behind Ghost Death, who has already executed another super jump through whatever stage this is, Temple to Forest Frenzy. But he did a really good job of sort of stemming the bleeding there and recovering what time he could from that really bad situation.
Culture is an interesting one. They have to go as fast as possible with DK. It doesn't work with DD. And if you're fast enough, you just have that extra barrel that sends you to the end of the level. Truck is a very fast level. And then you have... no, Treetop Tom, sorry. And Forest Frenzy, you have those weird manipulation that they will be doing, triggering the infinite jump. And they have to be extra careful because when they actually infinite jump, they have to do it correctly, landing on the Kremlin and not jumping onto it. In doing so, they will not grab the rope. So here you'll see they just touch the ground before landing on the Kremlin. So they don't grab the rope and they can just infinite jump above the entire level. Ghost Death using Espresso, very nice. It goes super fast and you have to be careful not to be too fast and to get a wrong jump or fall to a death, but it's just going okay.
The Espresso level is very tough on the memorization aspect of things. The camera is pretty zoomed in this game, and when you're going as fast as you are with Espresso, you don't get any time to see what is coming up in front of you. So sometimes you need to be, jumping in a certain way, maintaining your jump height for longer or shorter, and you don't really get the visual information as to what you should be doing while you're riding it. So, did really good with the memory there on that stage. Ghost Death now trying to execute on a weird glitch where you just kind of hit the button to enter a stage when you turn this corner. It only works when you have one sprite. That's why he got the funky barrel, because he has both Kongs, so he needs one sprite. They're both in the barrel, and you just mash like crazy as you hit the corner, and it'll send you to a level. And it turns out in this case, it will send you to Orangutan Gang, and pretty far through the level. It is faster than beating the level. If it takes that long to execute on the glitch, I'm actually not sure if he did save time.
But at least you don't have to learn the level entirely.
Sure.
Which is nice.
Yes.
But I don't know if that saved time actually. But it's such a big game that just being able to beat it, even with safer strat, is good. And that definitely is safer. But it is a weird glitch, like just mashing, like frame perfect, touching a face button in a corner of the map will send you to the middle of Orton Clan Gang. I don't know how that works at all, but it's very interesting. I know it happened randomly to Devil Thief on his very first race. They mashed the face button when they were like on the first world and just got sent all the way to world 4 and could not beat all stages anymore. That was kind of funny.
Well, thankfully that fate has not befallen any of our players. On stream anyway. Who knows what nightmares have happened to players racing off stream right now. We have seen some pretty bad nightmares happen to Silv Shady. He's been in Millstone Mayhem for a while, has been struggling to get some of these glitches going, and is otherwise kind of done here. So pour one out for Silv Shady, looking like they're going to have to come back for one of the other chances to qualify, and honestly, if they do, I think they'll have a great shot at it. This has just been a bad day for them. They're in the top 10 on the leaderboard. They are very strong in all of these games. Just something about today just didn't click with them.
Yeah, it's once again, they're not so used to racing, so maybe it doesn't work so well for them today. Just out of luck or out of stress, I don't know. Fireman is losing his Kongs left and right, trying to get Engard back. Lost Didi, got him back with the barrel, and then lost Donkey, and got Engard back finally, but lost a lot of time on that level. It's not the worst one, but you have to dodge the Croctopuses there. Buck with Engard the correct time, and finally done in through Clam City, but that's a lot of time lost. And Ghost Death not slowing down at all, just making his way through World 5, using his metal barrel there to get a huge momentum forward when he jumps off a slope. So you have to know exactly how that works, and you can go pretty fast through that level. Yeah,
he is doing a fantastic job in Snow Barrel Blast. This is the world where I think the game really steps things up, and he's met it head on and is doing fantastic. There's plenty more tricky stuff to come in the run, but of the players on stream, he's got a full level lead over Fireman, who is his closest competition, both in terms of tournament standings, but also in terms of PB in this game. It is basically Ghost Death 1, Fireman 2, and like I said, called it basically, but the PBs in this game seem to hold true in races. I'm not sure if that will continue to be the case, but for now, Ghost Death enjoying a pretty comfortable lead on these slippery ropes. It's a little faster to climb the same rope over and over, but jumping off of a rope and then getting far enough away from it to sort of come back and re-grab it is actually a pretty tricky maneuver, so a lot of players will opt for something safer. Fireman lost Diddy, was stuck with Donkey, and then I don't know if it was intentional or not from that point, but he does get hit by a bird and take a death in Snow Barrel Blast, so he's set back quite a ways, and he still doesn't have Diddies. So he's going to try to find him, and there he is, and just...
Oh, that was scary. Could have let that be, but it's okay. That death didn't look intentional to me. Really, it's a tough one. You got all those barrels you have to play around, all those birds flying around, flying to your way. Obviously, the bees are the worst, and just overall knowing exactly what you have to do, because you said it earlier, but you don't see much. Like, the screen is very, very centered around you, and you have to just memorize everything. And when anything goes wrong, like that, it's...
Ghost Death with the barrel ride in this level, I don't think I've seen that before. That was very cool.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's normal or if that's a glitch.
Oh, this is the espresso level, I think.
Oh, that's true, yeah. We should be on espresso, flying away through the level, but they probably lost espresso very early and had to default to the old-fashioned running through the level.
What a backup, though. That was awesome.
Fireman finally getting that final barrel. Will make his way to the end. Yeah, couldn't die anymore. And Ghost Death on the best level of that run, Croctopus Chase, the longest well level you'll ever see. It's very hard to get optimal because you have to get all those corners and all your swimming perfect. But it's a good break from falling so much on all the other levels. The sad thing is that you cannot get on guard at all there, so you have to swim slowly and painfully through the level.
Yeah, I think on guard would kind of break the game, the level rather. The whole point is that you're being chased by croctopi, croctopodi. I don't know. The on guard would probably just kill them, and so they couldn't give them to you here, so you are forced to swim. But it does mean that you get to play around with just sort of optimizing your movements, taking these corners the best way that you can. It's very unclear where the corners are with the way that this game is designed. You don't collide with the very edges of everything that you're looking at, so it is very tough to get a feel for when you can start holding one direction or the other. And Ghost Death's movement through this section has actually looked really solid. Normally, this level is so long that someone inevitably catches up to the leader in this level. And Fireman was making me doubt myself there for a little bit.
They had a platform underneath.
He's coming now.
Yeah, okay. They almost died. Ryuka through the same level without espresso either. Lost Didi off screen. They're almost done. Losing a donkey there. It's so scary. It's not even funny. But they will get to Croctopus Chase very soon. Grabbing the G here, meaning they're almost done. Oh no!
Oh, the orangutan just whipped it in his face. I'm not sure if he got the checkpoint barrel. He did, so he is going to be able to continue here, but Ghost Death is done with that very, very long Croctopus Chase now, so he is still quite a ways back, and Ryuka, I don't think can really afford to be this far back, really.
Yeah, they're in 10th place currently. LF forfeited with 0 points, so if Ryuka beats the game in time, in less than 50 minutes, they will beat LF, so they have that leeway, but they're currently in 10th place, so we don't know if they'll be able to get to top 8. They could, but it's very close. I know they're aiming for top 8, certainly like everyone else, but they went especially today for that, knowing they could do it, so we'll see. They have to beat that level though. It has to be done. Losing DD, breaking, getting a barrel back. That's where they died. The barrel killed them again.
Apparently that barrel has a hitbox,
Yep.
even though the orangutan isn't throwing it. It's just got active frames back there, and Ryuka found that out the hard way.
He was on top of that enemy. The enemy should have died, to be honest. It's the hitboxes. Like, I need to see the patterns where you have the orangutan hitbox and the active hitbox of the barrel, and that did not work out so well for Ryuka, having to start all over again. And they're bleeding lives, to be honest, and I don't think anyone will get will die here, but still, it is scary. Scary stuff.
Ghost Death showing no fear at the scary Donkey Kong Country, doing some really nice extendo rolls, tire rolls even. You can roll off of a tire rather than bounce off of it. The inputs are pretty, there's a window. It's not so bad, but it's also not free either. So the big issue with the tire roll, which we didn't get to see, thankfully, is that if you miss it, you're probably just going to die. But Ghost Death executing very well on that hard stage, moving into the really not so hard boss fight against very naughty.
Yeah, he was naughty before, and he is very naughty now, and he has some new patterns. He's just jumping higher, pretty much. It's not too bad. He's dead already. 6 hits, and we can get to world 6. Fireman died there. I don't know what happened.
No, he was in like a bonus level and then like failed the bonus levels. So Diddy like threw his hat and was stomping on it, and it's just taking a huge amount of time.
I got confused. We don't see too many of those extra levels. One of the biggest time loss would be to collect 3 companion tokens by accident, and that would send you to the extra level you can get, and you cannot die in those. You have to wait for the 3 minutes it takes to be over, which is just flat 3-minute last, which hurts a lot in a speedrun. Oh, and Fireman missing the tire, jumping a bit too short, dying in rope bridge rumble here, as Ghost Death executed perfectly his infinite jump, and just flying above that level, which is smart because World 6 is certainly the hardest, has a lot of tricky levels, and as little you can learn, as better you are.
Yeah, this is Oil Drum Alley is a very tough level. Most players have been opting to super jump over it. It's the first instance of a super jump that is not the fastest route through the level, and it's not going to be the last. It's just, it's that kind of level. It's Fireman into, what is this tire level?
Rope Bridge Bramble?
Yes, there it is. I only know it as the tire level because these darn tires are the worst part about it.
Wow. Nice
roll through at the end there.
It is like, you have to trade yourself to know how weirdly precise those jumps are. Clearly it's meant for you to bounce off it, and the rolling, it's not so easy, and as you stated it, if you miss your roll and your jump, you're just dead. You will either land too short or not jump and just roll to your death. It's bad.
We got Ryuka is in the dark in one of a couple levels where you can be navigating in the dark. You don't have to. There is a helpful parrot, may or may not be named Squawks, who will shine a light on the level, but generate a ton of lag. So as long as you're confident enough that you can, see enough visual cues to pick out when and where to jump, even the UD players have decided that it's worth navigating that stage in the dark. So Yuka manages to succeed there on that level as Fireman gets set up once again for Oil Drum Alley.
They died, so I don't know if it was while setting it up, but they died once and missed again the infinite jump. I don't know how, but they have to set it up all over again. And it's all about losing your Kong right and getting everything going, but apparently it is harder than you'd think. And they die intentionally here to get Didi and Donkey to be able to do the skip. So losing Didi here, you see Didi jumping very high, then losing Donkey, and then jumping onto the Kremlin. Here we go, very nice Fireman flying above the level. Ghost Death in Poison Pond, almost done with the game now. Just has to use Engard correctly, be careful with the mincers there. Bucking through them while you can.
Poison Pond is a pretty tough level. You wouldn't think the underwater levels are always tough in terms of speedrunning because it's so hard to make sure that you're not losing time here and there. But Poison Pond is a tough level just to survive, honestly. There's a lot going on. You can use/abuse On Guard quite a bit, but if he gets away from you, things can go south really fast. So Ghost Death going to be happy to be done with Poison Pond, but the levels kind of only really get harder from here on out. We're into Minecart Madness, and there is our first instance of a jump roll. So, wait,
no! What happened?
I don't know, we tried to cartwheel through an enemy, I think, or something, but...
Yeah, he jumped on it, and that reset his status, so... You have to not jump.
Oh, he's not going to do it now?
Onto the cart. Yeah, he's just doing it regularly. He's going to lose a ton of time here, but if he wasn't sure what happened, that's just better. You don't want to lose all your time trying to set up a glitch you're not sure of. So, being able to
makes
jump
sense
above Nikki's surviving.
We'll see how well he knows the level. I mean, he's definitely displayed some fairly intimate knowledge about the game, like being able to ride on the barrel in whatever that Ice Age Alley, I think it was, as a backup strat, was very impressive to know about that kind of thing. So I don't know if this is like a game that he's played as a kid or something and just kind of knows everything. I don't know, but he's very comfortable with this game, has no problems playing through a level that normally you mostly skip. So yeah, a lot of players would be quite afraid to do something like this in a race that is so different from what they've learned. But Ghost Death, no hesitation.
Yep, and they clearly know the levels. The minecart levels are way harder than it looks. You don't have that big of a window to jump. You have to be spot on, especially the first one, the minecart carnage. I know, I tried, I cannot do it normally. I need the skip. It's impossible. It's not, literally, I don't know how you're supposed to do to go through it. But yeah, they did well. And now the blackout basement, where the light goes on and off, and if you know perfectly the level, you can just go and never stop. But obviously it is scary not knowing. So you can see them getting some stops here and there, trying to get some cues. Yep, knowing exactly that would send him to its death. So okay, just making way through the enemies, waiting for the lights to go on. Good progress.
It is an absolutely terrifying level just for me to watch, so I can't imagine how the players must feel. I mean, certainly when you speedrun the game and you get familiar with it, there is a confidence that comes with these kinds of things of like, I'm doing this exactly like I practiced, and that means I'm going to land on this platform that I know is there.
Oh
But you
no.
can't help but feel a little nervous about enemies in the dark, like that orangutan
You
barreled
should be
in
able
the
to see,
face.
even in the dark, like the bananas, you see them. You should be able to see at least the barrels. Not necessarily the enemies, but the barrels, I think it's very unfair. But yeah, clearly that level is meant to be unfair, to be honest. It is tough. You have all those moving elements in a level where you cannot see anything. It is clearly meant to be like the final stages of the game where you will eventually die. We still have an opportunity to see that super roll jump through the air in the next level. Everybody's trying to go for it, but we've seen only it once in a live stream on Speed Gaming for the UD. So we'll see. Oh, his extended rolls here scared him a little bit, but made it to the end. Very nice.
Yeah, when he lost Diddy, I got really nervous for him, having to do that very tough Blackout Basement level with Donkey Kong, but Ghost Death makes it happen. Had the knowledge that the Chomper, it has the Claptrap at the end was waiting for him, and he almost rolled directly into it right at the end of the stage, but was able to hit the brakes, and I guess it was more of a U-turn it was, but kept himself alive. And just waiting out the boss drum fight here. Pretty simple stuff. Still shady done with Naughty. Round 2. Ryuka is in Poison Pond, and Fireman just finished, so he is going to be in Minecart Madness. We're going to see how this level can be done. If you just walk into this cart, not jump, and then get Donkey hit, Diddy can just jump out and roll in the air for free. So makes this pretty.
No.
He grabbed the rope.
That's okay.
But
Okay,
he's able
I
to keep
thought that
going.
would
Okay, I was not sure about that one.
What is he doing?
He needs
Climb
he
back,
needs to
climb back.
roll in order to jump again. So at the bottom of the screen with that bird enemy there, he had to execute a roll in order to get his jump back. So that was pretty tricky, but he navigated that.
Okay.
I don't know why he
got
fell so far in the
the
first place.
checkpoint.
I guess he wanted to keep his height low, I guess, to hit that checkpoint barrel, but
I don't
God,
know.
okay. As long as he
Just-
gets there, you know.
Oh
as long
wow,
as-
we touched the
Stop
tire.
interacting with all these things in the level.
Okay,
Just
we're
go.
good.
Oh man.
I was so scared. But yeah, if you just enter without jumping into the cars and then lose Donkey, you can trigger that. But it is so easy to reset, because as soon as the game knows that you should or are on the ground, it's going to remove the ability to cartwheel into the air. So it is, yeah. Wow, it was playing with our nerves there, clearly. But made it happen. He's probably shaky a little bit. Will take his time to get into that next level, and Ghost Death will have the opportunities very soon to set up here a nice roll.
Yeah, the super jump roll is kind of a combination of the super jump and the jump roll.
Ooh, that wasn't good.
Missed the tire there.
it's
He's
good.
gonna. Wow, nice backup, man.
Didn't know you could do that. Very nice.
So he's got the barrel, and it's coming up pretty soon. Meanwhile, Fireman is into Blackout Basement, and he lost Diddy, but he's got him back now. And Ryuka as well is in Blackout Basement.
And Blackout Basement take 2 for Fireman. And I hope it's going to go better for them. Ryuka now second place here. Silv Shady not having such a fantastic day, to be honest, but is going to be okay. They will be able to beat the game in time. 17 minutes to go. They're making good progress, so should be fine. But they're dying a lot, to be honest. It is scary. Their PB is actually way better than it looks. And yeah, overall, Silv Shady at 1700 points is a fantastic runner all over the board. but their PB on DKC is probably fairly old now. Let me check when he submitted it. But yeah, it was on the 31st of May, so 2 entire months ago now, which is maybe he didn't touch the game since. We announced the, 1 game per week for the UD, so some runners just got 1 PB a week and never played the game again, so it's always hard to come back to the game a bit rusty.
Yeah, but that's what you have to do if you want to compete in the UD. All 10 games, you know, not quite back to back to back. You know, we do 5 and then 5. Though eventually, I think there might be a. No, I think we always have the 5 and 5.
We're always doing 5 and 5. It is not clear exactly what we're doing in the Ultimate Finals live. It still has to be stated exactly, but we're probably going to do 5 and 5 just because it keeps the suspense going, and it's maybe better for the runners to rest a little bit rather than go for, you know, 8 hours in a row. Speedrunning, that can get scary. Fireman barely dodging the final claptrap here. Claptrap? I don't know.
I think that's right.
Yep, and Ryuka has an entire boss fight lead now. He's just trying to survive through that level, grabbing the fuel he needs.
Ghost Death is super jumping through Misty Mine. This is another level where it is faster not to, but it is a very tough level. You can see all of these enemies. If you really want to go faster than the super jump, you need to be executing rolls and extendo rolls through all of these enemies. It is a very technical stage, and it's a lot of trouble. So even the top runners in the UD recognized that this was a major source of time spent to learn when they could just learn how to do this one jump, eat a couple seconds, time loss, 20 seconds or so, and just guarantee that they will get through one of these difficult late game stages. And here's another one set up by Ghost Death, half in the dark, well executed, and is looking really good with only basically one level after this to go.
It's very close between Fireman, Sablier, and Ryuka. They're getting through that level, and they're all close together. Also in the leaderboard global for that tournament, Sablier is in 5th place, Fireman is 7th place, Ryuka in 10th place. It is going to be difficult for Ryuka to pass the 8 bar. I don't know where Kunine is though. They're on the 8th spot, and they're not so great at DKC, except if they maybe got like crazy good PB that they did not submit, or a lot of practice. We saw the Vultures, the Nekis, Fireman could have super jump rolled into, but I don't know if they missed the timing or they choose not to do it. But once again, another day where we're not going to see that trick, which saves an insane amount of time because you are just like dashing through the entire level instead of waiting for that slow platform. But it's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard. I mean, it's more than frame perfect, considering the setup involved. Ghost Death takes a hit on platform perils, is stuck with Donkey for I'm not sure how long, and I'm not sure if he knows, but eventually a DK barrel will come along and he'll be freed from this curse of having to play Donkey Kong. That's just a regular barrel, so that's not going to do it.
Wow, he dodged the enemy and was too low to make that jump. He got scared. He should have went for just jumping, but clearly that stalled him. And okay, has to start all over again. Getting Didi here, but getting trolled, and no, not getting Didi on time. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's focus.
He does know that barrel's there, though, so he's got a game plan. He also knows that Armadillo will come back if he leaves it alive, so he makes sure that he kills it, and he's looking much better. Fireman finishing, what was that? Tanked up Trouble.
Yeah. And
So he's going to be moving on.
Manic Mincers, losing Didi right away. That indicates he's setting up a nice infinite jump.
Yep, he just needs to switch and land on that the box, the animal box, where the Randy the rhino's inside. Yeah. He controls horribly, so we don't want anything to do with him.
Come on, he's the best.
he's okay.
He's slightly better than Donkey.
I like it. Yes, I'll give you that. I like him as a character. Yeah. As you know, if we were going by personality.
Death by Armadillo, take 3 actually, but he got the checkpoint, so he's going to be just fine. Has to pay close attention to those. Loses Diddy there. It is tough level. It is a long level and dies again.
I saw that life counter come up. It said 10. He can afford quite a few more of these mistakes, but he'd really rather not make any of them. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, the game list for UD6, Donkey Kong was 6th, 7th game announced, something like that. Yeah, so
that's probably why they put King K. in Smash Bros. There's all those momentum going around the game, that fantastic community speedrunning the game, and they went like, yeah, clearly we need to give that to them. So thanks Nintendo for the support. That's a tiny sign, but we appreciate it.
I appreciate what Ghost Death is doing right now. He is in a pretty tricky spot after those multiple deaths. It can be enough to shake you a little bit, and he knows that he is in 9th and that he is not going to make the cut unless he does really well here. He knows there's a lot of people behind him and in front of him who are capable of getting the points they need to shut him out, and a lot of players don't really opt to keep track of where their opponents are mid-race. It can be pretty distracting, and you just want to focus on what you're doing.
When it's 1v1, just pure duel, like you can see on speed gaming a lot of time, like all the Link to the Past setup and speed game, Super Metroid, like it's just 1v1. You can keep track, but you cannot keep track of 16 other runners, and you cannot decide what you're doing depending on how well they're doing, because obviously there's always that one runner that does fantastic. So you just, like, all the UD is meant like for you to focus on your run, do as well as you can, and like even if you're winning, there's always a reason to do even better. You want the extra point for the extra safety for the upcoming game, so you don't need to focus too much on the other runners' run. To me, it's very distracting when I'm running to hear the commentary on what I'm doing, because commentators always focus on what just happened and not what's upcoming, which is what you should be focused on as a player. So I don't know, like I would understand totally if a runner would prefer to hear the commentary and focus on the other players also, but that would be too demanding for me.
Yeah, that's definitely not my style either, and I definitely give commentary as if the players are not listening, for better or worse.
But you're doing fantastic, guys. No problem.
They are. That's why I always, every time I catch myself kind of taking certain things for granted, I kind of back things up and then say, like, well, you know what? Actually, the fact that they're all playing this game as fast as they are in such a short amount of time, and it's such a difficult game on its own, combined with a difficult speed run layered on top of it, and in the grand scheme of things, they're all doing fantastic. I do have to remind myself of that sometimes, because I get so caught up in the details and comparing to the best and what's possible, and it can be easy to lose things like that sometimes. Ghost Death has not lost against King K. Rool. It's all over. Credits. There's the credits. It's done. We can wrap it up. He's
Thanks
top 8.
Claptrap for the coding, Crucian for the characters, Creature for the coloring, Clamp for the concept of the game, and King K. Rool was the commander at the end. Very nice.
The commander. That's a weird. What position is that? Is that like the lead designer? Is that the? Wait, what? Oh my God! It's not over.
It's a trap.
All right, 3 more hits.
Yeah,
2 more hits.
We've seen runner die here. If you want to minimize lag, you should be losing a Kong, but that's risky, obviously. So I do like that Ghost Death is keeping both alive, and we should be done fairly soon. Cute Shadow off stream already finished, so congrats to them. And they got a good time of 43 minutes and 30 seconds. So just before finished, or just before God's death. Very, very nice.
Ryuka's overtaken Fireman through the last couple of levels, and Sablier for that matter. I forgot that all three were very close. So he's going to be the first one into Gangplank Galleon. And I think Sablier is on the last section of Platform Perils. Yeah, rolling to that platform there is the end of that level. So Sablier is going to be in third of the players on stream. Again, there's more players competing off stream, and some of them were have forfeited, like LF. So I'm not actually sure what this leaderboard is going to look like when we finally do finish with DKC and we pull that up and we get to see how it all shook out. But I'm looking forward to it. And one thing I do think is I'm pretty sure Ghost Death, with this really strong Donkey Kong run, has earned himself a spot in the top 8.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. They were so close throughout the entire tournament, and clearly just being able to beat the game and all 5 games in time. They did not have such a fantastic time on The End Is Nigh nor on A Story About My Uncle, but got 194 points on Cuphead, 154 on Spectral. So I do hope they're there. I do not know if they're going to be able to practice Castlevania and Shovel Knight enough for next week, but if they do qualify, I do hope for sure that they do. Sablier Ryuka is not done actually. Once again, the credits not giving them the actual ending. That should be random. You should have like 50% chance of killing him, and 50% chance of looping to the fake credits all the time.
I think every Donkey Kong Country speedrunner would hate you. Get all the way to the end of the run after all of the like super jump rolls and frame perfect nonsense. It's a very difficult speedrun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rolls and extendo rolls that become magnitudes of order more complicated and difficult if you really go for the optimized stuff. So to get all the way to the end and then have just a straight up dice roll on whether you lose a minute to King K. Rool.
Yeah, that's pretty much the Mario Brothers 3 speedrun though. So
yes,
it has
basically
happened in the past. But yeah, now you just have to get your 6 hits ready on King K. Rool, 3 and 3, and Ryuka is done. Sablier getting to the fake credits. Fireman almost done, also having to wait through those long cycles. The Mask is actually going to be beating the game barely before Sally, a couple of seconds. It's going to be nice. Skunk Off also at the end. King K. Rool is such a long fight that every runner we are going to cycle through are going to be fighting King K. Rool at the fight, and it takes about 2 minutes, so it's just about waiting, dodging, and not losing focus, because you can see sometimes some runners trying to, entertain themselves, and you can lose track of what's happening pretty easily.
Man, we're going to be seeing a lot of K. Rool, aren't we? The players have done a pretty good job of getting in under the cutoff, so we're going to be here on this ship for the next little while, get used to the music. The Mask, he doesn't have to get used to the music anymore. He is done with King K. Rool. Skunk Off is... DKC was one of his weaker games, but he is very strong at the others. So we saw him drop back quite a bit after a pretty bad opening run of Cuphead, but has bounced back very nicely. Look for him to do very well in the later stages of our August tournament, finishing off King K. Rool rather, for realsies this time. Also done. Fireman is celebrating his victory over King K. Rool, just behind Skunk Off.
Barely sub 50.
He's just happy to have finished the game, it looks like.
Yeah. GG, congrats to all that beat the game. DKC, clearly, it was one of those games. Whatever the time you put in, being able to beat it with the intention to go as fast as possible is crazy, to be honest, because you will take so many risks. Like, you will make some blind jumps and just you will take some crazy risk whatever the time you put out. So congrats to all the runners that are able to beat the game in time. It is quite tough, and it's needed if you want to be in the top 8. So Sablier has a couple of cycles to go. They will barely make it sub 50, which is the goal for the 100 points.
And that is, like, that's necessary. I'm pretty sure if Sablier was to come up with a 0 here, I don't know if he holds on to the top 8 position that he is currently in. So with both Kongs, I really don't see anything going wrong here.
Oh,
but,
wow, as you
okay,
said that's commentary
keep it
curse
together, Sablier. He can do this. He is an incredibly strong runner.
No!
Oh my goodness!
Whoa,
That is gonna be... That's it. He's not gonna have enough time to finish. He's gonna try.
Hurts.
And maybe there's stream delay going on or something, but I'm pretty sure Sablier just posted a 0 in Donkey Kong Country.
They deserve that sub 50 time, totally. It's crazy. Yeah, we are totally sorry for any commentary curse that happened today. It is, you know, it's speed gaming, so it has to be that way. But wow, he lost like his two Kongs so fast.
So it might not be over, even with the 0. We'll take a look, but due to LF's forfeit and Konine as well, Sil Shady didn't make it happen. So with those players dropping out, I think he might be okay. But jeez, what if it mattered?
Yeah.
That would have been, oh man.
DKC is clearly today the big decider. Whether you finished or not, it's not. It was not about like finishing fast. It was about just being able to get sub 50. And it's difficult first to be able to get sub 50. So congrats to everybody that did it. But yeah, let's see.
So our winner of this round, I mean, we're really just cutting down to top 8, so I don't know if winner is the right word to use, but finishing in first is Cute Shadow, 28 points above second place, and both of them 40 points above the rest of the competition, or more, 40 or 68, I guess. But finishing very commandingly in first and second, Cute Shadow and Skunkoff, possibly the two favorites to qualify in 2 grand finals over the course of this August tournament. Certainly a lot of players who can give them a run for their money, like The Mask, Ghost Death, who finished in 4th overall, jumping up from 9th, Fireman, Quick, Ryuka, and we can see Sablier finishing in 8th, qualifying for the next round, just barely, with that 0 that on Donkey Kong Country. That is, he's going to be thinking about that for the next run. Yeah. So he qualifies, but he's got kind of a demon on his back now a little bit that he's going to have to worry about.
Look how close that is, like Ghost Death and Fireman, 2 points apart. If they can pull off like just barely a little bit better, like 10 points per game, they will be so close to Skunkoff and Cute Shadow on those 5 games for the finals. Next week are the 5 other games, and 5 other games mean 5 other set of affinities and skill for all those players. So Cute Shadow being first today might as well be last next week. We don't know. It's obviously the runners, the UD runners tend to practice all 10 games at the same time, getting like a good set of skills going for all of them, but it's never sure, so we'll see how well that goes. But yeah, qualifying today, Cute Shadow, Skunkoff, The Mask, Ghost Death, Fireman, Quick, Ryuka, and Sablier. If one of them is not available next week, we will qualify LF, but one has to drop their qualification, and all 8 of those will get on their player card that bronze star, just to show off a little bit. So that's always a reward. And yeah, next week is going to be the semi-finals, so we will qualify top 4 for the finals. So in 2 weeks we will play all the 10 games on the Saturday and the Sunday, and we will be joined by Devil Tifa and Brother Name, so we can see how they match compared to the new runners. So it's going to be interesting. It's just for show. They're not going to steal a place if they end up first or second, obviously. But just, so we can have the players back there to see if they just took a big break and they're rusty, or if they're just keeping on practicing and they are totally unbeatable. But yeah, that's going to be what's next for the UD. And next on Speed Gaming, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take a look. But earlier today we had aside from Cuphead and DKC, we had a story about my uncle, grappling first-person platformer. The End is Nigh, precision platformer, kind of like Super Meat Boy. And Spectra Ball, a weird roll a ball around game. That's what the first 5 we competed in today. Next week we will have the other 5 that make up the full decathlon. It's going to be Shovel Knight, Metal Slug, Inertia, another first-person platforming sort of game, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, and Trials 2, flipping some bikes. So that's what you can look forward to for UD next week. What you can look forward to on this channel coming up in just a moment is the Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons 7 Essence race. There's been a lot going on in Oracle of Seasons. It's been cool to see. Stuff happening on all the other channels right now. Even you could go look at some of our Link to the Past randomizer summer qualifiers. This is a really cool thing that Speed Gaming is doing, a Link to the Past randomizer. There's a prize pool, and it is something we are pretty excited about. Qualifiers will be happening all throughout the next month or so, and then we'll get into the sort of head-to-head matches in a tournament format like you're used to. And if you'd rather just see some good old-fashioned platforming or whatnot, we've got like Super Metroid, Mega Man X, Celeste. I think, yeah, that's going to be happening later today. You can go ahead and check the schedule for all the things happening.
The group stage for Celeste is almost done, so we are going to get into the most exciting part of that tournament. So be sure to tune in and to see what's the bracket like. But I think the end of the group stage is this weekend, actually. So if you want to tune in into a tournament and just don't know what to watch, Celeste is the good time to get into, I'd say. Super Metroid, I'm watching almost all the races, and it's starting like right after that on Speed Gaming 2 and goes for the entire day. From 3 PM to 7 PM you will have some Super Metroid races on Speed Gaming 2, so I'm pretty hyped for that.
Pretty hyped for a lot of things, but I'm definitely pretty hyped for next week, next weekend. It's going to be Saturday, 11 a.m. EDT, 5 p.m. CEST, 8 a.m. PDT. I almost got them all right on the first try, but it had to go with the AM PM. That's going to be where we'll be here with the next phase of our August tournament, narrowing the top 8 down to top 4, 5 more games, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Be sure to follow Cute Shadow, Skank the Mask, Ghost Death, Fireman, Kerpupik, Ryuka, and Sablier if you want to see their progress for next week on Twitch. I know they stream a lot. It's going to be very interesting to see new names, old names. Clearly, Cute Shadow, Skunk Off the Mask, and Ghost Death making fairly good impression today. They will maybe make it to top 4, but it's going to be a new set of games, so you never know. Be sure to tune in on Speed Gaming next week.